All right, we're live. NCS podcast, April 2nd. We're chilling here, me, Derek, and Alex. We're going to try to get some people to talk about their favorite Buffalo hardcore shows.
Maybe even Chris.
And maybe Chris, but Alex was just talking before we came on air. Alex was talking about his second COVID shot. So continue your story about that second COVID shot.
I mean, there wasn't much story. I got a shot around 6 p.m. on the 31st.
Yeah.
And I started feeling a little bit off, maybe like 1 in the morning that night. And yesterday I basically didn't move from the couch the entire day. And I was like delirious the entire day. It was as terrible as I felt in a long, long time, but I would do it again in a heartbeat.
Good to hear.
Yeah, today I feel mostly better, but not all the way. But, we'll get there. I'm good. Probably, tomorrow I'll probably feel fine.
Good. Looking forward to hanging out sometime.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. I already booked my first thing that I get to do as a citizen of elevated class and distinction.
Yeah.
Who is fully vaccinated. I've bought tickets to a Sabres game against my own better judgment.
Yeah. What game?
The Penguins game. My friend Ben, who he's from Pittsburgh. He's helped me out with a thing or two recently, and just a little thank you. I bought us a pair of tickets.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It'll be pretty good. What's
bro?
Not much, man. I did get my first shot on Wednesday.
Yeah, the first shot didn't really mess with me. I felt like a little bit off. The second one really, really stomped my ass.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. It's been kind of the norm for people. I mean, I just felt tired and my arm hurts, But other than that,
yeah,
that's all right.
Where'd you go?
I went to Jamestown.
Jamestown, man. People like taking the trip, get this stuff done.
It's like less than an hour, basically. It's not that far.
Hit the Lucille Ball Museum.
I didn't do any sightseeing or anything out in Jamestown, except for the JCC gym.
Yeah.
Chris here? John.
No, it's John talking about his favorite show. He said something at Tyler.
Tyler, huh?
There was some good stuff at Tyler.
Yeah,
for sure. There was awesome shows at Tyler.
Well, I say best basement ever, but I am partial to Headquarters, but it is the best basement ever.
What shows were at Headquarters? Like 2?
Yeah, but it was different. Those were my guys, so that was my thing.
My favorite Tyler Street show was definitely the No Reply Life's Halt show.
That was a great show. Is that where you had the poop incident?
Yes. Yes.
What's the poop incident? I don't remember.
Are you fucking kidding me, Derek?
I don't remember this.
All right. So between sets, I remember I was sitting on the floor of the basement at 33 Tyler, talking to Adam Maiolo. We were just hanging out, and some band started tuning, and I put my hand down to lift myself up off the floor, and there was human shit on the floor.
Oh man!
And my hand just skidded out. It just skidded out from under me, and I was like, "What the fuck?" And then because it was dark and I couldn't see, I brought it up to see what it was, and I smelled it, and I started gagging.
No, that's horrible.
And then fucking Ruben, who was living there at the time, was like, "I'm gonna figure out who shit on my floor, and I'm gonna fucking murder him." It was not great, but also it was objectively funny.
Yeah.
Hey Tom, how you doing? Welcome to Apparently a Shit Show.
What's up, man? Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes, I'm Mark.
Hey, man.
What's going on, Alex?
Hey, nice to meet
Are
you.
our names not on this thing?
Yeah.
Nah.
I'm Derek.
No. Hey.
Figure that out. somehow.
Yeah, I also came in halfway through this story about Alex getting shit on his hands. That would not be one of my favorite shows. I'm not gonna lie.
It was actually a fucking awesome show, but then like Jeff King addressed me as Edward Shitterhands for the next 5 years.
Was there like I think I somewhat remember that show, like a trampoline, and I don't know, it was a pretty cool show. But Tyler had a lot of good shows, I feel.
Yeah, it was great.
Definitely. I was a fan. That used to be a frat house because when I went to UB, one of my friends who I lived with freshman year, that was a Phi Kappa Theta frat house.
No shit.
So I'd been there before then. Trying to figure out how to get like Pete the Talker to be on the screen. That'd be kind of cool.
I don't know,
if we
like
can do that.
you're showing up on mine right now, so maybe it's like, I don't know, however people have things set up. What's up, Pear and Eric? How you guys doing? I see Perry just recovered from COVID.
Yeah.
Our neighbor down the hall, we found out, just passed away from COVID, which is freaking us out a little bit.
Did you interact with this neighbor?
Not as much as I used to, because she really wasn't wearing a mask very much, and it was like, you know what, like I'm good with that, like, but I would see her outside, and I saw her outside walking her dog, like, maybe last week. So, talking to other neighbors, it sounds like she went to the hospital, got misdiagnosed, sent home, and then when it got too bad at home, she went to the hospital, and that was that.
That sucks.
So, not to put
How
things
old
down.
was she?
Late 60s, early 70s, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's rough.
Oh.
But so
speaking of that, rip Rob from Black Train Jack.
yeah,
That's terrible. For those who don't know, Rob from Black Train Jack recently passed away. He had a bout of COVID and succumbed to it. So, not the greatest week in hardcore, I guess.
yeah.
But I learned a lot about him though in this week. I've like listened to some interviews with him and stuff, which is cool. So
yeah, he was a good guy. He was always
Yeah.
like nice guy.
I didn't know him, but it's a shame to get to know about people that way. It'd be a lot nicer to find out when they're in good health.
yeah, I remember I talked to him. I went to Detroit for the first Civ show, and he was with Sick of It All because they played too. And I was asking about Black Train Jack's breakup because they had broken up around that time, and I was talking to him about that. That's the only time I ever talked to that dude, but he was super nice at that. It was Detroit like 94 or 95, and I saw him there.
Detroit in the wild days.
Yeah, it was cool. I think I got concussed at that show because someone jumped on me. I was up front for Sick of It All, and someone like landed on me, and I just was like, I saw stars, and I went to the back and was in the hallway until the show ended.
So
Was
here's a story that combines concussions and Detroit. At
Every
the
story in Detroit.
97 Warped Tour in Buffalo. I'm watching H2O, and Ratbones, who's like infamous everywhere. Apparently, I don't have verification because I was knocked out, but apparently Ratbones decided to headwalk and started with me, and there was no one else around me. So he just basically jumped on my head, crumpled me to the ground, and then continued on about his business.
Hit you with a missile drop kick and walked off.
I couldn't turn my head to the right for 6 months. It was insane. Like, I probably should have went to the hospital, and it's very possible I broke something. But hardcore, I didn't do anything about it. And we lived in Richmond. I may have lived with you at the time, or you moved in shortly after that.
Yeah, I remember.
But I was fucked up for months.
Yeah. You didn't go to the doctor or anything about it?
No, because it didn't have insurance. It was the 90s. It was just like, oh, I'm not dead, so I'll be fine.
Fair enough.
You survived. You made it.
Yeah.
So
my posture's questionable, but other than that, I'm great.
You look all right doing those things you do on Facebook and on social media. Like you're pretty straight.
Yeah.
You're pretty straight.
All lines everything back up.
I go to the chiropractor every other week, so that's what I do.
I missed that. I got in a car accident a few years ago, and I had to go to the chiropractor all the time.
Yeah.
then like weaning myself off of that when it stopped being covered by No Fault was like,
yeah. I think it's improved my quality of life a little bit, so I'll go with that. I know some people deny it, but whatever. I'll go with it.
I think that like anything else, there are good ones and bad ones, you know?
Definitely. Agreed. So do we want to talk, or do we want to talk about favorite shows?
Well, let's since we got Tom here, let's talk about some of Tom's favorite Buffalo shows.
Sure.
Maybe Tom,
Definitely.
Give a quick rundown on your pedigree for those who don't know, because there's probably a few people who are like, who is this guy?
Yeah, for sure. Anyone who's seeing this probably. From Cleveland, Ohio. So got involved in hardcore there in, I guess probably technically you could say the earlier 80s, but I'm 51 now, so probably like 84 I started listening to hardcore. I guess that's like mid 80s. Got into it and started going to shows in 85. Was pretty heavily involved in it for quite a while. Played in Confront, was in the original version of Integrity, started that and played on the In Contrast of Sin 7-inch. That's probably the most well-known thing that I was involved with. Booked some shows, put on a bunch of the shows in that era where we were bringing bands from, places like Buffalo and a lot of the early kind of youth crew shows and stuff like that. Booked a bunch of those and did a bunch of that kind of stuff. So that would probably be the relevance here.
Right on. Yeah. So what was one of your favorite shows you booked?
Man, I saw someone was posting like, what are the best shows you've been to? Something like that. There's a show, and I guess the anniversary won't be that far off. It was like the end of March. It was the original. There's a flyer that's out there that bounces around, the original Straight Edge Fest in Cleveland, where I booked the first time we had Judge, Project X, GB, Beyond, Life's Blood come down, which was a pretty stacked show to have in like a little, pizza place with like a 6-inch stage.
Would that be Coventry Pizza?
Yeah, it's Irv's Pizza in Coventry. Yeah,
okay.
Not the Coventry Beverage and Pizza. That was smaller, but it was down the street from there. And there's the picture. I think I sent it to the dude from Bridge 9 originally when he redid the Project X release. Like there's the picture of Purcell singing, and like there's you can see a bunch of the Cleveland people like Dwids in the background. It looks really.
Oh, you know what? I made a meme out of that picture about like Dwid focusing on his face and focusing in on Porcell's abs.
Yeah, he's like very, very goofy looking. Like everyone from Cleveland are like dorky ass, like pasty teenagers, and Porcell's like tanned ab dude with like frosted hair. We were like, what? It was very different. Yeah. So that was probably. I mean, I'd have to say that's like my, if I did one good thing for hardcore, like putting on a show like that, I think it gives me a little bit of karma for it. So
yeah,
that was pretty cool.
What would you say was your favorite show Confront has played?
I mean, that would be one of them. That was a big one. We got to do. We did some cool shows with like. I mean, we played a bunch of shows with Youth of Today, on that summer '88 tour. And I mean, that was pretty awesome. That was like, especially at the time, that was a real cool thing.
Do you remember the Buffalo show at the Fight Back?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
What are some memories that you have from that show?
Oh man, yeah.
Feel free to set the stage.
Yeah, so I think that was the last show of that tour, if I remember. They'd come through. They'd gone, I think, from Cleveland to farther out west and come back around. I'll tell you, a great show was on that tour, and I would say that was like, at that point, that was like the best thing in music. Like, you can look at some of the classic videos that are out there, like the Bad Brains, 82 Christmas show, and like they're the best thing in hard music in the world at that point, and just on fire. Yeah. And I think Youth of Today that summer was like the best thing there was. That was a band in their prime, and just that was taking the that part of the country by storm. So they came through on the way back. They didn't have a second show booked in Cleveland, and we had them play in a girl's basement, which was pretty awesome. So it was like, cool. We're gonna have like Youth of Today on this tour play in this girl's house, and like 40 kids are gonna come and just go nuts. Yeah, she lived out in like really like bougie, nice suburbs. Had this like big house, and yeah, that was pretty cool. And then we played with them in Buffalo probably the next day or 2 days later. I mean, they used to like stay at my house. My mom would cook them all breakfast, and all that kind of stuff. It was fun. But we played, and I know Outface played. And when Outface was playing, I think somehow I heard these dudes were Canadian, maybe, but they were a bunch of skinheads, and they started Sieg Heiling Derek, and Derek was like, he's a great dude, man. I'm so psyched to see him getting on so many different like podcasts and stuff to hear his stories, because he's an amazing storyteller. But he was like, stopped, and he's like, between songs, like, do you have a problem with me because I'm black? And they were like, yeah, F you, and dropped the N-bomb on it. And it was like, it got pretty heated, right?
Yeah.
And I think Steve Reddy was like heavily involved in some of the confrontation. And then we were kind of just hanging out in the club, and we had a guy with us, kid we went to high school with, named Rashid, and this skinhead girl came up to him and was like, I don't know what's more disgusting, you or your N-lover friend here. And he was just like, sorry, he was just like, bitch, like, and she's like, you don't have the balls, and just wound up and open palm slap across the face. It's like, and just decked her, and it was just like a loud, crisp, like sound. And then that's I think when it kind of set it off. And I think everything got broken up. I don't remember exactly, but I remember going outside in the van, and it was upstairs, right? That was the pipe.
Yeah,
dragon.
that was the pipe dragon. Was the upstairs on like the third floor, like a death trap if there ever was one.
Yeah, but I remember being downstairs, and like there was like a side alley or something. We were parked, and I was hanging out in the van, and I think it was just like I was talking with like maybe Luke, and like those dudes came up. I think they'd been thrown out of the club or whatever, and like 5 or 6 of them came down this alley, and we were kind of like, and then he took off, and I was like, shit, like, but he didn't punk out and ditch me. He like ran and got people, and I was kind of like, okay, and then all of a sudden, like all these dudes stormed out, and like I'm pretty sure that was the show we were like chasing dudes down the street and like throwing pieces of pavement at their car, and like as they ran off, and yeah, it was wild. It was yes, exactly. Slapping Nazis is always good. Hell yeah. And like I would not want to glorify like hitting a female for sure, but like that was the time. Like,
if that was Holly, so like a little back history on that, because obviously being from Buffalo and being older, there's been like various run-ins with those people.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember the really tall one that kept Sieg Heiling Ray Cavill while they were playing and kept knocking his hand down.
Yeah.
And they were like eye to eye because the dude was so tall versus Ray on the stage.
Yeah.
That dude died in a standoff with cops.
Good.
Oh shit.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
When you get me rooting for the cops, you're a piece of shit.
Yeah, fuck the police, except in that moment.
Yeah.
The girl was probably Holly, and like she probably got a lot worse from her boyfriends. Like it's just that whole scene. Like, yeah, that wasn't the first time they got chased out or chased around someplace.
Yeah, it was wild. I mean, it was and it was one of the things in hardcore. I think also like there's a lot of like kind of nefarious like smack talking at times, but it was like they were Sieg Heiling, and Derek was just like, hey man, do you have a problem with me because I'm black? And they were like, yep, for sure. And we were like, oh, okay, what do we do now? Like,
yeah,
I guess there's something more's got to happen. We can't just be like, oh, that's not cool. This isn't really acceptable.
I do like another memory I have from that show, because I was there, but I was like didn't really know anybody or whatever.
Yeah,
there was one dude who had like white power on his jacket or something, and he made it a point to stand in front of Derek at every possible moment he could. And,
Derek is like the
I was,
nicest guy.
right. I was amazed that
Yeah.
I mean, Derek's also huge,
He's a
particularly
big dude.
then.
He's
like,
a big dude. Yeah.
Like I was surprised. Like, why don't you break this dude in half and throw him down the stairs? But he's
I wouldn't
nice
want
guy.
to see Derek mad. He is like a really like gentle kind of dude in a lot of ways. But yeah, that would. And I for some reason I thought that maybe like one of those skinhead dudes was like in the army or something. I heard. I'm not sure.
Yeah, Nazi Mike was a Ranger.
Okay. Yeah. So.
Hudson, I think,
Nazi
was also
Mike,
in the military.
Yeah, that's we heard later, but yeah, something like that. But I mean, that was just like the girl was like, it's sad because I mean, like no one gets like that because they're like a happy person with a good life, I would assume, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
especially when you're saying this, it's like it's kind of a bummer to hear, but yeah, I mean, she was just like, I don't know what's worse, you or your loving friend. You don't have the balls. And it was like a comic, just like wide. He was a big, tall, rangy dude. He could box. He didn't punch her. I've seen him, punch many dudes and like land combos on them. And it was just like a windmill slap. It sounded like, you dropped a textbook on a linoleum floor. It was a good time. I'm not going to lie. Yeah. But yeah, that was, I mean, that was the only, I mean, I guess only time there was, I think we'll talk about that AF gig too, but otherwise,
we'll bring that one up.
Everything in Buffalo, we had a great time. I mean, Buffalo was like, we were very connected. We felt like we met dudes right off the bat. The first time we were up there, probably, I think I did like a mail interview with some guy who did a fanzine. I still have the sticker actually on my base case. Push Too Far fanzine.
Okay.
I can't remember because like everybody in Buffalo is named Mike or Mark. It seems like. So there was like, am I right?
Yeah, at that time there was a lot of
like
Mikes and Marks and John Marks and Mikey Goes and a lot. Yeah.
I think they were all like they seemed like they were all super cool. I had but it was all like Irish Catholic, like probably played like CYA basketball like league type dudes.
Yeah. Like they
that was definitely the vibe up there.
Varsity jackets, like legitimate varsity jackets from schools they went to.
Yeah, and they took us probably the first. Not the first time, maybe the second or third time we came up to Buffalo. A bunch of those dudes took us to the Champion Outlet, and we used to go to that all the time when we'd come up there. So Urba posted a little while ago. I think he reposted. It was like the 10-year anniversary of his Facebook post of like, we tried to take these pictures at Niagara Falls in all of our Champion gear we just bought and trying to look like hard, like these dumbass poses, like oh my god, it's so terrible.
I've definitely seen those photos.
Yeah.
I
mean, it's awesome. Like, but
so good.
Yeah. We came up to Buffalo many times. We played a lot of shows with Zero Tolerance. I love the kind of the episodes we did with those guys to catch up on it. I wasn't as familiar with the later era of them. I mean, I've listened to it a lot since then.
Yeah.
But we definitely played many times in that kind of like early era with them. It
was interesting, like just like thinking back to those days about how a lot of bands that started out as kind of, for lack of a better term, youth crewy or like straight edge hardcore, went in a total metal direction. Like Integrity, like Die Hard, Integrity kind of went that Slayer direction. ZT went that Metallica direction. Like it was just like, it's just interesting how it all just kind of happened at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a combination of like dudes wanting to stretch their kind of musical abilities and for dudes who could play, and certainly Integrity. I mean, Aaron, he was texting me earlier today, he's an amazing guitar player. The dude's in Zero Tolerance, especially some of the guys who came in later. I mean, very talented musicians and could go beyond the like, the basics. And then I think also probably veering away from the edge contributed very highly to that as well. And like what dudes were listening to when they started partying was different from, what they listened to when they were 17 years old. And like, I'm going to be straight edge. And like,
well, shout out to, Dave Vincent. What's up, man? Haven't talked to you forever. Pear was definitely not a Mike or a Mark. I'm sorry, Tom. Keep going.
Yeah.
And Eric,
No.
yes, if you have any members about that Youth of Today show, we'll get you on here to talk about it. Go ahead, Tom. Sorry.
Yeah. The Youth of Today show was. I mean, that was like a big one. So yeah, you mentioned the other day about the AF show. Who was at that? Were you at that one?
I was not.
Okay. Oh, you got the flyer. Nice.
This is the AF show in question with Wolfpack and False Hope. I'm guessing you guys came down with False Hope, or did you come because it was AF?
Gosh, I don't. I mean, I'm sure we were psyched to see AF. That was probably maybe the second time I'd ever seen him. I'm not 100% on that. I know I'd seen him before once. But yeah, I'm sure that the False Hope was like how we got kind of connected to that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I never knew the details, right? I think the place got trashed pretty hard, right? Was that
like the bathrooms and stuff got torn up.
Yeah,
and,
I remember.
I
remember one dude being like, "Check this out," and like smashing his head into through the drywall, and then writing "skinhead" above it. And I was like, "Oh, cool." And that was like, what was it? What was the date on it? Is it October, something like that?
Yeah, October 30th. Yeah.
Yeah, 87. So yeah, we were like, I was like,
Was it at the
17.
Pipe Dragon as well?
No, it was at the Metal Shop. It was actually the last Metal Shop show because of everything that happens. And up, and people, I heard about it afterwards that kids, the punk kids were outside burning AF shirts because of the skinheads that showed up from which Ryan Foister told me later were from Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And just kind of followed AF.
I remember reading about it on, I think Jeffrey Nicholson had a bunch of pictures from that show, and they were talking about the skinheads on there and how they were fucking up the place.
I know dudes trashed it, and I'd heard it got the venue shut down as usual. That happens, and then we had I think we were gonna go play a show in Toronto the next day, maybe. So we were heading up that way, and there was a girl who was with us, and she was like, she came out when we were leaving. She's like, "Hey, after I don't know, it was like they're gonna kill us or something," and there was some big, story about how it wasn't. Those dudes, I mean, I think they've left as big a mark on hardcore as anyone, right? And are known to be such good dudes, and Vinny's everybody's basically great uncle of hardcore. But at the time, also, don't forget those dudes were some scary dudes, especially when you're a goofball 17-year-old, from Ohio. They're on a different level and been through some different stuff. So it's oh, AF are trashing the place, and they're gonna F us up or whatever. We were we got to get out of here. And then we were these guys suck. And it was they came to town later, and somehow we've been Gnostic Front suck, and then they were why? It was something where we're oh man, this is gonna not go well. And they were pretty cool, and they were no, we didn't do who was saying we did stuff? We didn't do shit. We're cool and love, the scene and all this stuff. And we were great, good to hear. Also, I don't want to get my ass kicked by a bunch of dudes 15 years older than me with crucifix tattoos.
Right.
Yeah.
They were probably 5 years or 5 or 6 years older. They weren't that much older, but it seemed like they were 100 years older.
They were another generation, however many years it was, and those Lower East Side years are dog years, right? They were they're if it was 5 years, it was a real serious 5 years, but yeah. But it turned out cool. I'm not real. I don't know those dudes too well. But they were real cool with us later on. So that was great.
Yeah, I mean, they did play Buffalo for a long time after that, but I don't know how much of it had to do with that show versus Roger's various prison stays.
Yeah.
Or I guess summer camp stays is the way.
Vacations.
Yeah.
Vacations. Yes, it's various vacations.
And it's one of those things that that was pre-internet by a mile, but it was one of these things where there was all these stories about they were trashing the place and beating everything up and probably lighting it on fire, and going to kill anyone who said anything or whatever. And like, who knows what they heard, right? Like they might have been like, oh, people in Buffalo are like saying this or that, or like Cleveland or whatever. So that game of telephone, goes quick.
Yeah. Larry Bleachmouth just said that's the first time in a long time he's felt like the youngest person in the room listening to these stories.
I'm in the room.
So, what I'm gonna do?
So, quick question.
What?
When Kelly was in here for a minute,
She's coming back.
Was her?
No, she was right side up.
Upside down for you guys?
No, it was right side up. It wasn't
right
moving at all.
Upside down on mine.
Weird.
But I also had it pulled up on Facebook on the live stream on Facebook, and it was actually right side up. Now she's right side up.
You're broken. What's up, Kelly?
Everything seems to be moving right.
So why don't you? So we're talking about favorite shows. So since you popped in, we won't make you stick around forever and listen to us talk about silly stuff. What was give me a favorite Buffalo show?
Oh dear. One that sticks out in my mind that was just like this epic culmination of all these different bands was that Shelter Far Side. I still have the flyer at Randall Studios. And
Is that where they got beat up show?
There was the episode outside with the local people, but it was such all these diverse bands that like really was a differential thing of not hearing like classic anthems of just straight up like New York City hardcore. It was of various groups of people were there for like the melodic style of Far Side, or people were getting involved in Krishna and vegetarianism, and a lot of straight edge kids had that aspect. And
what year was that? Do you think?
I think it was Support too. Support.
Yeah, it was like 92.
It was so long ago, and it was such a beautiful show of all these different people that like different styles of hardcore. And it was a fucked up crazy night, but it was also all these bands that were larger than we'd seen in a little segment of time, that I just remember that show stand out so strong in my mind. I know the waiting room had that flyer like pasted on the wall as like a favorite, but that was definitely one.
Is it all torn down now at the waiting room? Like, is that gone? I haven't been down there in a while.
I don't know. I mean, it's
what I
kind of a shame
understand,
because it was such a great, perfect little venue,
Well, I guess what happened from what I gather is that when the guy who owned the building bought it, he gave Chris Ring a 4-year lease, and Chris did all those crazy improvements, made the place awesome. It was a really nice spot. Mm-hmm. And then when the lease ran up, he tried to gouge him really hard on rent.
Yeah.
And Chris was just like, nope, I'm not doing that. And the guy basically just told him to go fuck himself. And now the building's been vacant for like probably as long as it was occupied. And as I understand it, Chris also basically took out everything that he legally could take out.
Damn. I mean, he did a lot of that artwork. Those Buffalo flyers are all like Buffalo history all over those walls, like laminated into the wallpaper.
Yeah.
So that was a shame. I mean, no one can get down with anyone, any place, at this point, like Mohawk, whatever. We'll go anywhere for music, but that just was like a nice place as like an older person hardcore that was just, it had parking, it was clean, it was whatever. I'm being a big baby, but it was.
Well, plus just having
we like the term
venues
hardcore
in the same
adult
building.
versus older people. Just saying.
Having 2 different venues in one building, so that if the show wasn't big enough to fill downstairs, they could just move it up.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, Chris did a lot of work in that place, and that was like his like baby to get rolling and like take the legacy of what we all had and make it a cool place for us.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mind the rec room, but it's a multi-dimensional place. It's not for
The Rec Room is a bar that can have shows. The waiting room was a show venue that also had a bar.
right.
Yeah.
I have a question that probably none of you know the answer to, but why didn't he just buy the building?
Probably wasn't for sale.
So,
I mean,
I for some reason, I thought he owned the building. I have no connection to Chris Ring. We don't, I had no idea, so I just assumed he owned it. Pear, what's up? I just assumed he owned the place.
Hi, Chris.
I never been to
Derek, Alex, Mark. How are you guys?
I never been to Randall's. How many people did Randall Studios hold?
oh my God, that place was.
Oh,
It was
250,
a perfect disaster of a warehouse. How? I mean, do you remember, Chris?
I was in Illinois at the time, so
You
I
were-
missed
you were there?
Randall's. I missed
We played Randall's a few
Scrapyard,
times.
like,
You can get 300 folks in Randall's.
It was huge.
Yeah.
It was a big warehouse. It had the slope floor. It had the stage. It kind of had this like, I mean, no one was really drinking at that time, but and the acoustics were kind of shitty because it was so open, you know. So the reverb and the drums kind of got lost in the thing. But it was a time when we needed that space, and so many bands that after like we didn't have the Scrapyard yet, and we lost the Pipe Dragon, so it was like this middle ground space for a while. And then River Rock was gone too. And then I don't even know what happened. I don't even know. But it was a weird place at a time. I think I was like fucking 14 or something. And there was no heat. The ceiling leaked all over the fucking place. And it was just like a place to go. And our parents dumped us off at this warehouse on Main Street. Bye.
Where did you guys have shows before the Pipe Dragon? Was that
Metal Shop.
Metal Shop? Okay.
Yeah, Metal Shop and like some random like spots. Like I wish Brian Foister saw this because he could like name off everything.
Oh yeah.
But it was like the Metal Shop had a lot of shows like that AF show, SNU, a bunch of other stuff. Then I feel like there was a couple of random spots, and then the Pipe Dragon was pretty consistent. Yeah. Then whatever reason the Pipe Dragon ended, and then the River Rock was the place for like a few years. And then after River Rock closed, like I moved to Illinois for a couple years. It seems like Randall and Scrapyard were the spots, but when I came back, those places were done. And
I went to River Rock as well.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, what was the last show that you went to or played in Buffalo, Tom?
River Rock. We played there, which I think was probably not the last Confront show ever, but maybe the next to last one. We did 2 shows, one at River Rock and one I think in Erie.
Okay.
In a weird reincarnation. We'd broken up. I think I'd gone off to school at that point. But we did a couple shows with a lineup with Aaron Melnick and Frank Novinnik playing guitars.
Oh.
So, which is pretty cool. Definitely not exactly your straight edges of dudes, but
it would have been interesting to hear what that combination would have recorded.
Yeah.
When I lived in China for a couple of years, there was this streetwear store. It was like a chain that was in a bunch of different malls, and it was called 3 Gun Living Solutions. I have no fucking idea why, but it exists.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Were you at that show, Tom? The infamous 3 Gun show?
No, I don't think. I'm not sure exactly which one that was, so I don't think.
Yeah, he got that name at the River Rock.
Yeah.
It was an integrity show at the River Rock.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't. No, I wouldn't have been that one though. I have heard about it. Yeah. So the River Rock was probably, we did a couple shows, and that was one of the last 1 or 2s. I think we did a weekend there and in Erie, and then that was kind of it. So
I apologize.
What's that, Pear?
I came into the game a little bit late, even on just the feed. But your favorite show, Tom, at the River Rock, I missed it. What was it?
You know, I was talking about. I mean, I didn't really talk about favorite show. I guess I talked about the Youth of Today show with the big kind of riot type ish thing. The Agnostic Front show. So those are kind of the more like notable ones. Man, we played so many, like not River Rock, Pipe Dragon. I'll tell you one, probably the show that sticks out to me there. I can't remember exactly which. I can picture the flyers, and I have some pictures from it. But very distinctly, I remember the first time I heard Beyond was there. And I love that band. I'm a big Beyond fan. Yeah.
Beyond is
like,
awesome.
Yeah.
I heard 7-inch and flipped out in like middle school. Went nuts.
Yeah. So good. And that was when they were, I don't even know if no one had the demo and
it was the demo.
I think Purcell, was like, dude, I'm bringing these guys down. And we went up to Buffalo the night before they played in Buffalo. And Buffalo had, I would assume that was probably the first out of town show for a lot of those bands. Cause like they did a couple weekend tours. Like that was the first Judge show ever outside of New York was I think Buffalo, probably the same for Project X. Yeah. Cause those bands weren't really like playing out, like Mike put that Judge record together as a concept.
I mean, Buffalo's the only place outside of New York that Project X played more than once.
Really?
No, Cleveland.
Project X didn't play Buffalo.
I think they did.
Not that I know of.
I believe they did, but
I'm just going by what I was told. I wasn't there, man.
I'm pretty sure they did because those guys all came. Basically, they would do like that trip of come down to Buffalo, and then the next day come to Cleveland. So, and I know Project X played in Cleveland at least twice.
I feel like they played somewhere weird, like not downtown. Like they played in Lockport or something odd. Maybe I'm not remembering correctly. Or
that's why nobody heard about it. It's just they played the Falls.
Yeah, but I remember Purcell had told us like this was hyping up like these young guys are so like they're awesome. They're like Minor Threat and like 7 Seconds and Iron Maiden together. And we're like, what the hell? And then like literally standing in the Pipe Dragon on the second floor and then just going into like opening up with like one kind word. It was like, yeah, I mean that's one of my favorite bands for sure. And like Beyond and Zero Tolerance were bands we played a lot with and were like felt like connected with. So I remember that for sure.
Beyond used the Chinese crash symbol a lot more on the demo than they did on the full album.
I'm going to say the demo is better than the full length.
Right?
I'm just gonna
Isn't it always, Chris? Come on.
No, it's not always the case.
All right. Well, it's not always the case, but it sounded the production was too tight on the new one.
The album, I definitely agreed with that for a long time, but that album has grown on me, and I maybe in retrospect I like it as much. It's different, but yeah, I think Beyond demo should be in that conversation when everyone's always like breakdown or raw deal, which is it? And I'm like,
yeah, no, it absolutely should be. What's up, Scrape?
I'll throw the Beyond and the Underdog demo in that conversation any day.
I'm not the only Greg Grizzled guy here. Let's go.
Come on, what about this? Is it grizzly enough for you?
No, Chris, you've always looked like you've always been grizzly.
Yeah.
So let's get to another. Somebody give us your favorite show. Come on, Sprig, let's do this. Or Pear, do you want to do?
The reason I piped in was because I've had this conversation with Chris, and I don't think it made its way on the pod. But my favorite show ever was Social D in 1988 at the Elks Lodge in Buffalo.
Oh, okay.
The reason why is because that's 3 or 4 months before U2 had come to play at the Odd in Buffalo, and I was like, I was into punk rock at the time, but U2 was still sort of on the scene for me, and I'm like, well, Mom, can I go with my friend Greg who had tickets? Can I go see U2 at the Odd? She said, no, I don't think so. And 4 months later, I'm at Social D with Goo Goo Dolls opening up and Boneyard from my current locale, Rhode Island, at the Elks Lodge, and watching my future bassist get choked out by a Nazi, watching Mike Ness confront that same Nazi, who's Mike Ness is like 5'9". Big John is like
Yeah.
6'6". I mean, I think you were at that show, Chris. I mean, it was
It's
I've
wild
just
times.
never seen it. I'm like I could have gone to see U2 at the Odd and like gone, hey, and I'm sitting here watching them. I love this. This is my scene.
Is that the
And
same
here-
Nazi? The same tall Nazi we're talking about?
Yeah.
Could be
Might be, yeah.
6 foot guy named John, 6'6".
Wait, you're not talking about Johnny Ox, the guy who
I
was the
wouldn't
bouncer
know.
at River Rock. You're not talking about him, are you?
No.
I was gonna say. I
No,
think
that-
you're talking
that guy-
about 6'6". I think you're talking about Carmen Hudson.
Okay.
That's the dude who got killed in a police standoff.
Okay.
Was it?
So like,
What happened with that? You brought that up. I gotta know.
I don't know. Like, I was told about it by a friend who told me that apparently police responded to his home on domestic abuse, and he came out with a gun or something, and that was that. So that cop should get extra funding, but that's just me.
Give him extra fun.
I'm with it. I'm with it.
Briggs, what you got for favorite show in Buffalo that you've been to?
I'd say my favorite show was at River Rock Cafe in 1989 with Judge, Gorilla Biscuits, Chain of Strength, Bold,
Yes.
and Insights.
And
Yes.
Insight. I stand by
Football.
Insight stole that show. I stand by Insight was the best band to play that night. Blew everyone away, and anyone who denies that, I don't know what to say.
That was another one where that same tour played Cleveland like the night before or after.
Yeah.
I mean, in hindsight, the fact that you'd never be able to see 4 bands like that on the same show, we all know that would never happen again. So to see those 5 bands with Insight is just absolutely insane. Like, I actually loved Insight, so being able to see them was pretty sweet. But not only to throw in those 5 bands, but to know that that was the last show Bold played before they broke up is absolutely insane. I mean, I actually prefer Bold with Tom Capone. I love that last 7-inch. I mean, for me, that was like the catalyst to hardcore going to the next level. And we all know what happened after that. Just musicianship increased. But that show was just absolutely insane. Like, all of us out here can just thank Brian Foister for all those awesome shows he did back at Rock River.
That was a great show, Scott. I remember that show. That was probably my 7th or 8th show ever, and it was Riverwalk was such a great venue. Yeah, you're right. I don't think I've ever seen a pile of bands like that in one venue in Buffalo ever. I mean, it was amazing.
Yeah, if you were going to do that lineup again, that would be a 4-day fest, and each one of them would be headlining. You wouldn't get them all in the same day, one after
Pretty
another.
much, yeah.
Totally.
How much was that show?
I think it was like $7 or $8.
Yeah, and there were like 350 people in there for like 120 capacity venue.
Yeah,
it was really
so
insane.
hot, so packed.
You're right. You're right. I remember just the crowds moving. Just you couldn't really dance because everyone was just sort of moving.
I remember when I was like 15, I walked into Discovery Records and I saw a flyer for that show. I was just like, that's fucking made up. There's no way.
Yeah, you saw the flyer that I nicked from Brian Foister that some Euro made, like a remake of that show that I posted on the Instagram.
What is that thing? Let me find
It wasn't a pizza ad to me, but I thought it looked cool, and like if that show happened now, that's totally what the flyer would look like. So I had to put it up.
Yeah.
if I can find that thing.
Did you go to that show, Tom, or did you just do it in Cleveland?
I was just thinking that. I'm trying to remember because I came out to Buffalo so many times for things like that.
Yeah.
I'm really I can remember the River Rock. I know I have a cool picture from when that tour played in Cleveland, someplace, and I can remember it, but I just can't remember specifically if I was at that next one. I mean, I definitely saw that exact same lineup Was that like late August or something like that?
Yeah,
It was
sometime
like
in
just a
August.
sweat bath. Yeah, I think I can picture the flyer. I think it's like August 29th in Cleveland, so it's probably like the next day or 2 days.
Yeah, it was like
in
I want to
Buffalo,
say the
so.
27th, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I don't know who's going to pull that flyer apart and show us all.
This thing. Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah, that is pretty
August
cool.
18th. Oh, look at that. It was like a week before.
Yeah, maybe it was the 19th. Like I'm not sure, but yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
The other one I was thinking of when you mentioned Rhode Island is the Underdog Verbal Assault show. That was one of the ones. That was maybe the second time I ever came, and that was at a church.
Yeah.
It probably was.
Yeah, it was like the first Lutheran church or something. I can picture the flyer of that too.
Yeah, I've only lived in Buffalo since 2000, or Rhode Island rather, since 2000.
Yeah.
But Verbal Assault is they're an influence around here.
Great band, and that was the only time I ever saw them. So that was a good one in Buffalo.
I don't know how many people know this, and now it doesn't matter, but last year in March or April, Verbal Assault and Swizz were going to do a short tour, and then COVID fucked that up.
Really?
I heard
Yeah.
about that.
What's
I
that?
think it was.
That
What?
on 12 inch is fucking sick. Like, I
Which one?
love Trials. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Dude, that Verbal Assault on 12 inch.
Yeah.
People talk about Quicksand. I listened to that Verbal Assault on 12 inch that came out like 2 years before Quicksand. I'm just like, that's what they were trying to do. That shit is so fucking perfect.
Yeah.
You're absolutely. Yeah, I
And
agree.
speaking of underdogs, am I the only guy that listened to Vanishing Point and it took like 2 years for it to sink in? Because I didn't like it at first.
Behind you-
You know,
Yeah,
there was
you-
a lot of
final
people.
player.
A lot of people didn't like it at first. I loved it.
So,
But, I'm weird.
I've got the Underdog vinyl here. I've got the 12-inch right here. I do have. I'm not going to play it tonight, but I've got the Underdog 12-inch here.
Good one.
I like that record, but
Maybe tomorrow I'll play it.
the demo is so awesome. I love that, and I would love to hear like what that Underdog LP would have been like with a little bit harsher production. It's just like the songs are great. It's just a little too clean in some ways for me. I still like it, but
Yeah. Well, the live shows are definitely were much more, much better than the studio produced albums for anybody. But I always thought the Underdog album was.
Dude,
was
you're crazy.
wrong.
It sounds great.
Yeah, I thought I didn't think it was. I thought it could have. I was surprised it wasn't as. It didn't sound as screwed down as I thought it might have been.
Larry Bleachmouth talking shit as always. I was gonna say like
There's a
for
quick story.
one of my favorite shows.
Hold on.
Favorite shows. What's that?
Hold on. I think Sprig had something. Hold on. Who wants to go first? Sprig or Chris?
Go ahead, Spring.
Okay, cool. I was going to say, here's something to make Kelly Green smile. So, my first tattoo appointment was actually with Chris Hall, and the two of us had an appointment to go tattoo dogs that he had made a double appointment. And my plan was to get the Underdog
Was it a
Fantasy
date?
Point cover tattooed on my ankle, but we couldn't find his fucking tattoo parlor. And we drove around the middle of nowhere for like an hour, never found it, never got tattoos.
Was it Don in Strikersville? Was the tattoo
Yes.
Don in Strikersville? Yes. He was like in a barn
It
tattooing
was.
all the hardcore kids.
Wasn't that?
Have you heard of this guy, Chris?
Yep.
Yeah, man, he owns Nickel City Tattoo. He was from what I understand, I never got tattooed by him because I couldn't get Strikerville. But from what I understand, he was under like house arrest or something, so he had a tattoo out of his house.
Yes.
Yeah, and then he opened up Nickel City Tattoo in '99, and a bunch of people from Skin Art went there.
Yes.
it doesn't sound like Buffalo hardcore dudes are sketchy at all, from what I'm hearing.
Chris, Every tattoo, I'm coming to you. So it'll be 5 of your 6 tattoos will be done by.
And that was like
Yeah,
when you started doing weird shit. Like you guys got your X's on your hands, and you were doing
Dude,
all
they're
that
like, that's what
stuff.
we're getting into, like, weird, super heavy tribal stuff. And it was like, I just want to get, like, tattoos of, like, gorillas and baseball bats. Like, you guys are getting all this wacko Sunday tribal.
Yep.
Can't beat gorillas with baseball bats.
You can't beat gorillas with baseball bats.
No,
That's the best thing ever.
Chris does the best bats in a pinch. I swear to
Now
God.
do Poseidon.
Tattoo
I'll-
John, Strikerville, or Mike Ski in Erie.
I will show you right now.
You know, I got tattooed by Mike Ski for the first time last year, and I've known him for, like, ever. I was, like, the first time I ever got tattooed by him. It was just funny. And he still had, like I've said before, he still had all the art he did in high school. He showed me, like, a thing that he did for you guys from front that you never used. And, like, I was like, oh, that's cool. I can kind of see why you didn't use it. But I'll send you a picture. I'll send you a picture of it.
Yeah, send me a picture. That'd be cool. Yeah.
But he's like, yeah, I did this for Confront, and they didn't like it. And I'm like, this is awesome. But I can also kind of see why they didn't like it because of the time period.
I'd love to see it. I don't remember it. So.
Yeah, when we get off of this, I'll send it to you.
Yeah, cool.
But I was going to say, what's that?
Thank you for the pictures of the other tattoo from the Veil.
Oh, yeah. And I was going to say, thank Derek for finding those manic pictures. Like, he's super
Was that you, Derek?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Clutch. How the hell can you track that shit? That's like 40 years old, 30 years old. That's insane.
I went on Flickr and just searched manic depression punk, and that's the only way it came up. Like, and that's just someone's like Facebook post or something like that. It was like my third search though. I found it pretty quick.
That was impressive because I've been looking for manic depression stuff through Google for years. I haven't found that.
Is that the one I saw the other day with a guy with a big mohawk?
Yeah.
Like one dude's like fully giant mohawks, and the other dude looks like just a high school skater, and like I love that era of hardcore.
That would have been fair.
Yeah, that's fair.
Oh, that's you. Okay, cool.
He's a skater, dude.
Yeah.
The woman who took those pictures was really cool too. Like I messaged her like, "Hey, do you have any more?" She's just like, "No, I took 2 photos of that band." And
that's how it was back then.
That's how
we were working. 1 or 2 pictures and then went about their business.
Yeah, I mean, film was a finite resource, you know.
Yeah,
totally.
Hey guys, I'm gonna jump off. I'm gonna try to keep listening, but I just got home from work, and I think my wife is waiting for dinner. But I appreciate being included in this.
Thank you, Tom.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, man.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I love being included in it, man. Buffalo was always like it felt like our second home, and we loved it and played up there, and hung out with people. So I like keeping that going, man. Anytime I can, answer any questions or talk some shit with you guys.
I always make people jealous when I tell them how many times I've seen Confront. They're like, what?
Yeah.
Like they're practically a local band, man.
Confront was a huge part of my hardcore existence in Buffalo, so thank you.
Cool, man. I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah.
All right, cheers.
Cool, guys, man. Thanks.
Later.
I'll talk to y'all later. Thanks. Bye.
EVR.
Hello. I could not invite myself into this party. I feel like you guys are chaperone, like an old guy.
The only EVR that matters.
The legend.
One time I had to drive Copper to New York City for a show at Wetlands because I was the only one old enough to rent a van. They were all underage still, or under 21, and so we rented a van, and I drove all night. Steve Mack and I rode in the front, talked to me the whole time, and I'll never forget. I got introduced to, I forget the name, the guy who ran Equal Vision.
Steve Reddy.
Yeah, okay, Steve, yeah. So I was like, EVR, meet EVR, and he was like.
It was funny because, like, in the '90s, I only knew you Eric from Home of the Hits, And I worked at a bar in DC for like 5 minutes, and one of the guys there knew somebody from Buffalo, and they're like, "Oh, so you must know this EVR guy." And I'm like, "Vision Records? Like, what are you talking about?" And it didn't.
That's funny. I would go down to DC to hang out with my friends in that band Velocity Girl, and I would run into like the guy who played bass in MILF, a Buffalo indie band in the early '90s, and he hung out there at the Black Cat. I think it
Black
was.
Cat, that's where I worked. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So there's a lot of DC people I probably knew, but more from the indie scene, you know.
Yeah, but they only knew you as EVR. I'd be like, Eric? And they'd be like, no, EVR. All right. Like, I don't know.
No one wants to know Eric. Everyone should just know EVR.
Yeah. I know Eric who actually got me into the Damned. So.
All right. I did something right all those years.
Oh, the old Pink used to play Wait for the Blackout, and I was like, shit, I'm like 17 years old listening to this, and I'm like, this is a really great song. Who is this?
I was, yeah, thanks. The whole thing with me was, whether it was the store or the bar, was like,
I knew you weren't working the door.
What's that?
I was 17. I know you weren't working the door.
Oh, yeah, no. I don't know how that happened. Glitch. There's a glitch. Some people accidentally got in early. Anyway, I just want to say this has been a lot of fun to watch and listen to.
On the walls.
What's that? Scott, what?
Raise your hand if you've seen Tremendo play Break Down the Walls.
With that guy singing it.
I definitely have seen that.
So like some kid at UB booked Snapcase and Envy, and they put on the band Kindergarten, who were kind of like a Nirvana style band. They were good at what they did, and I wasn't that into them, but nice people. And so we got on the bill, which was really funny, and we were a 3-piece at the time, and so we thought it would be nice to do something for the crowd. So we had it all set up. We were going to play Break Down the Walls, and Daryl was going to sing it. And at the last minute, he got all like, "Oh, I don't know." And so Scott was like, "I'll do it." And so Scott Sprigg jumps up, and honestly, like I've been playing my indie rock, to like non-caring audiences for quite a while at that point. But all of a sudden, everybody went ape shit. Kids are running all over the stage. I'm just like, holy shit. It was like being in the middle of a hurricane. For me, I wasn't used to that. Because even when I went to go see punk shows, I was never the guy to like jump up on stage or crowd ride or slam dance. I was always the guy toward the back, trying not to get hit. Being like thin didn't help. I wasn't about to go in there. But you guys were talking about it. It was a lot of fun, and I thought that was awesome. My favorite part of that show, though, when Snapcase played, that guy John, who lives in Rochester, right? You guys will probably all know him. He used to be at all the shows. He we're me and Rob Chunk were standing behind the amps for Snapcase watching, and he's like next to us, and he starts taking all his clothes off, and I'm like, the hell's this guy doing? And the next thing you know, he runs out and just does a spread eagle dive into the crowd completely naked. And I was like, this is cool.
We were me when we did
all these hardcore kids with like somebody's junk coming right at them. Ah!
When we did the Lockjaw episode, me and Bill Page were talking about how we would always get naked during that band Nail, and how we actually probably ruined their career because no one wanted to go see them because of us.
Oh, that's great. I think going back to favorite shows, I was talking about it earlier online with someone because yesterday was D. Boone's birthday, but the Minutemen at Buff State in 1984 and Husker Du at Buff State in 1984. There was a lot of great shows. Although I wasn't as into the hardcore scene. I was more into the punk scene, obviously.
Mm-hmm. So here's a question for you. Did you go to the Dead Kennedys show when they played, I want to say, at Uncle Sam's Skate or something like that?
I never knew that they even played Buffalo. They may have. I didn't go. What do you know a year?
82, 83.
Yeah, if it was 83, It may have been like after I started college, because once I started college, I had all these like upperclassmen who were really cool handing me like, oh, you should check out this band Wire, and all this stuff like that. And my mind just exploded. And all the stuff I liked in high school, like kind of got like, I still liked the Dead Kennedys and stuff and Black Flag, but all of a sudden I was hearing all this like post-punk and just incredible stuff. And, so I just kind of was like more like, oh, I want to be like cool like these older people, And, as you are at 18, 17,
Right.
18, So they may have played. I saw Black Flag twice in Buffalo, but not the good Black Flag. Well, not the original Black Flag.
What's the good Black Flag to you?
Damage, or like with either Ron singing or like Early Henry, like the 5-piece lineup. They played the Continental, but I was still in high school. I was still a senior, and the idea of a kid from Orchard Park getting to the Continental on a school night was not really in the cards for me.
Yeah. So
I was going to say, I would love to see the Dead Kennedys at Buff State, but I was like 7.
Yeah, Husker Du was probably the most incredible, one of the most incredible, powerful shows I ever saw. My favorite thing was there was these kids next to us who all mohawked out, and they we're all like, I don't know how to describe. We're all like college rockers, and they're like the Husker Du are setting up their stuff, and the kids are like, man, these guys got some real scumbag roadies, and we're like thinking to ourselves like, oh, that's Bob Mould and Grant Hart and something like that. They set all their stuff up. They just turn around and start playing. And I don't want to take over here, but they start.
Take over.
Zen Arcade had just come out, but they had already recorded New Day Rising. So they opened the show with like 6 songs from New Day Rising, which is like a big step forward to me in that band. And I mean, I just remember, like, you hear that expression, my face got melted. I was just like, this is the most incredible thing I've ever seen.
That's awesome.
Minutemen were great too, but it was outside, so it was kind of.
I love the notion that Bob Mould was like the creepy roadie. That just.
What?
I just love the notion that Bob Mould is like a creepy roadie.
Oh, and afterwards, there were some guys from Fredonia who had a punk band called the People's Front, and the drummer is now known as Grasshopper from Mercury Rev. And they were all like hanging out, talking to them after the show, and like this kid Kyle, who passed away a whole bunch of years ago, but he starts talking about wrestling, and it was just really weird because we didn't know, like they were talking about wrestling, and I was like thinking like, what's going on here, and then Bob Mould ends up working for WWE or whatever you call it. Yeah. Funny stuff.
Nice.
That Youth of Today show at the Pipe Dragon was insane. I walked in there all like 23 years old, thinking, I'm cool. And I was like, holy crap, that drummer's 6 years old. I was like, these guys are like little kids. And Brian Foister's up front, like counting the money.
My third show ever was there was a Social D show that we talked about then, and then there was DRI at the Turtle.
Yep, that was a big one.
And the third show was YOT at River Rock, and that was the next show after their appearance at the Pipe Dragon. And it was completely bananas. I mean, I wasn't a straight edge kid at the time, and nor am I now, but I mean, it was just, and I've never seen that many people in such a small area. It was insane. That was
the Pipe Dragon was an amazing thing to have survived for 2 years. The way it was run, there was nothing legal about it whatsoever. Nothing.
So when I was at UB, I took a documentary video course. And I tried to get in touch with Mark Radis, and I couldn't nail him down. I wanted to
John Radis, you mean, or
John Radis? Yeah.
Radis. I wanted to do a documentary on the River Rock.
Yeah, that would be a great.
I mean,
That's
Larry
true.
Ransom is
find-
doing that book, and I've talked to
find-
Raditz. He's agreed to do an episode of the podcast, and I actually sent him an invite to like try to be part of this. We'll see how that goes.
Well, it's about 30 years too fucking late. Just kidding.
What? I don't know if this is true, but I heard one time like John would do sound for the bands.
Yep.
And he had a guitar up there, and he would plug it in and play along with bands sometimes, like while he was doing their sound. I don't know if it's true, but somebody
Not the
told me.
bands that we were standing.
Well, yeah, no, but like we rock band, like he would like be sitting behind the soundboard with a guitar and it's plugged into something.
Yeah.
I'm like,
That's going to be like the third question asked if he does it.
Yes!
Like, yo, so what's up with you playing along with the bands, and how many videos did you ruin? Is that the real reason? Like, is that the real reason you don't want anyone to see them?
that's funny. I remember that pole in the middle of the stage too. I played there once. I played there once in '88 or '89, and I was sick as a dog. And I just remember I leaned against the pole the entire time I played. It was so nice. It's like, oh, I'm gonna die. Okay, I'm good.
The pole is #1 supporter of the scene.
Yeah, I love seeing old photos when you guys all post like stuff like that, or like then you see like 6-year-old Garrett Klon in the front. Oh yeah, that's good stuff.
I think my favorite picture is the one with the X with the NTSE on his hands.
North Tonawanda.
Such a baby.
North Tonawanda.
You guys got to have him on here sometime.
Yeah, we're going to do an episode with him. We just got schedule it out.
Yeah, he's going to be in town. He just told me today he's going to be in town at the end of April, hopefully, because he's getting his second dose soon.
He told me he got the Johnson & Johnson, so he's good.
Oh, I thought he said he got a second one coming. I'm a Pfizer dude, so I'm good.
Same.
Pfizer.
I'd say Boomer's got the
I'm
vax.
Moderna.
But I gotta say, Boomer's got the vax, like that Silent Live thing. But I'm technically Generation X, thankfully. So my best friend's 6 months older than me, and I call him a Boomer. He gets so pissed.
How do you guys get shot? I'm not even qualified for a shot.
You are now.
Well,
Yeah,
maybe not there.
Well, New York
Yeah,
State.
New York State,
And
they
now-
pretty much want everyone.
Well,
Like they did over 50. That's how I got in. And the next day they hit over 30.
if you guys have dodged it for this long, good on you. But it sucks, man. It's just not fun.
Yeah, pre-existing conditions. So,
Okay?
we'll leave it at that.
I figured out that Pennsylvania doesn't have a residency requirement, and I drove to Pittsburgh. And I
Just break that
smoked
from the
cigarettes.
record.
I think Derek said he went to Jamestown.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I'd get a vaccine down there. I went
First of all,
to
there's
school
10,000
for Donia.
maniacs down there chasing you around.
My favorite joke is like when you guys mentioned the comedy museum at the beginning, and I would play. I like to tell people, it's kind of behind the 10,000 Maniacs Museum. That's like my only joke I have about it.
Yeah, I don't remember 10,000 Maniacs being from Buffalo, but people have been trying to convince me of that lately. Who's wrong?
Jamestown.
I feel like you're the one. Yeah, Jamestown. That's
Jamestown.
Buffalo. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
So-
no, but they played all their early shows at places in Buffalo, and so they were basically a Western New York band.
So,
And then-
so I coach youth hockey, and my assistant coach this year is a guy from Jamestown, New York, and he went to Damon College, like literally a stone's throw from the house I grew up in.
That's great.
And,
Nice.
and he's a really nice guy, and he likes the 10,000 Maniacs, but to a point. But it was really funny. It took me about the whole year to figure out that he might actually know some of these people. And yeah. He's like, yeah, they're from around. They're from Jamestown. They're not Buffalo.
Yeah, I've been friends with John Lombardo, who left before they became super famous.
Okay.
And then rejoined them after Natalie was gone. And
Okay.
I've known him since the early '80s because Fredonia, they'd play at
That's
small
great.
bars in Fredonia, and
Right.
they were a lot of fun. But I'm not a fan of like the stadium kind of sound they had. But I like those weird early records. But they used to do like Joy Division covers and stuff live. It used to be really neat to see them. Trying to think what else. I saw the Descendants in Williamsville back in 1986. And
Williamsville, New York.
yeah, they played a VFW post off Main Street.
Nice.
It was supposed to be somewhere else because what's that?
Was it the Moose Lodge?
No, I don't know. It's off Main Street, like, but a street that runs parallel to it.
Sheridan.
We got it wasn't Sheridan. It was like a little street. It was just like a block off, and Justice League opened and Dag Nasty with Dave Smalley. And
nice. And it's not the same as Dag Nasty and
Marty and the three. I was in a band in Fredonia with Scott Reynolds, who some of you may have remembered from the band All and many other things. And the best story about that is that the three of us got there, and we were like, besides Marty Borton, who worked at New World and books the Mohawk, we were like the oldest people in the room, basically. The Descendants had a fanzine, and Scott was already looking to get out of Fredonia and go to LA and be a singer, or go to somewhere and be a singer in a punk band. And so Tony Lombardo, right from All, who had been in original Descendants, he had put an ad in the Descendants newsletter about looking for a singer. So we were in the hallway of the VFW post during Soundtrack, and Scott used my parents' long-distance calling card. Remember those? To call Tony Lombardo from the Descendants Soundtrack to see about moving to LA to be in his band. He's like, wait, where are you calling? Wait, you're at a Descendants show right now? Tell the guys I said hi, And 6 months later, he moved to LA and hooked up with Tony, and they had a band. And then when Dave Smalley left, Bill Stevens was like, Scott, you're the singer now. And then, that's how he got into All. So it's kind of cool.
Nice.
It's because of my parents' long-distance calling card. Otherwise, this shit never would have happened.
It's all because of you.
My parents were like, what the fuck are you making a call to Los Angeles for? It's going to pay off, I swear.
So, any idea what Dave Smalley's doing these days?
He has the band Don't Sleep.
Here not live, all right.
Yeah, he's super
2 or 3 years
Republican,
ago.
and he has that band Don't Sleep.
He's a Republican.
And good time. That's why. So there's he does like this Don't Sleep band that has a bunch of records, but every song is a Descendants song when you see him live. And him and Brian Baker can't be in the same building because Brian Baker hates him.
Really?
That's why they're doing Dag Nasty with Sean Brown.
Oh, really?
That's so fucking with all right, so
I never got the whole guys into hardcore or whatever. I mean, I guess earlier you were talking about all the skinheads and stuff like that. So I guess there is like a right wing side to it, but I just never got anyone who was into
there's like
going out
there's
with
a libertarian streak to it. I don't get it.
Yeah.
So I went. So one of the last times I hung out with Hartnett actually was in New York City when Screeching Weasel played at. They played at
Irving. Was this like just a couple of years ago?
Yeah,
I may have been there.
Now. You may have been, but it was him and it was Screeching Weasel and Dave Smalley's band, right? And he didn't seem like a freaking nutcase then. He seemed all right.
Yeah, he apparently doesn't talk about it, but if you read interviews and it comes up, like he's big time.
He used to run like a website, like a Republican punk website.
Yeah.
You know? But
okay, it's like a satanic Christian. It's behind you.
It's so weird. But yeah, so that's why they do it with Sean Brown, because Brian Baker doesn't want anything to do with them.
Please.
Wow.
You know?
It was a great show.
Yeah. Well, was it Dave in a major label like hard rock metal band or something too, or am I just thinking of Brian Baker?
He was
Brian Baker was,
Junkyard.
Yeah. And Down by Law may have been on a major for a minute when majors were picking up like whatever they could.
I don't.
But I think it
Atlantic
happened the
maybe.
first
I don't.
record.
Yeah. I remember like when Jawbox got signed to Atlantic. A local guy I knew was so despondent. He wrote a letter like to them, like I don't want to go into it because I don't want to embarrass the guy, but it was like they talked about the band talked about it in fanzines forever because they were like how was it like going from Discord to Atlantic? And like, well, we got this letter from a guy in Buffalo that wanted to die in a van accident. It's like and to be honest, the guy who wrote it is like super cool. But at the time he was like really into that, like so into the it was like I think he would definitely take it back if he could.
You'll when this is done, you'll have to tell me who it is because I feel like I know who it is, but I got to verify
I don't
that.
think
I
you
don't
know
want. I don't want to put
he's
anyone
more
on
an
blast.
indie. He's an indie rock. He was
Okay.
like more in the. He was a Home of the Hits regular, and he was more in the indie rock scene.
Right.
Because when like Chris Celeste started working at Home of the Hits in '92, like he brought a lot of like. There's a lot of guys like the Tugboat Andy guys who were always into the Discord bands that were more that were less punk, like more
Yeah.
like Shudder to Think and things.
Yeah,
like
they're
that.
more Discord guys.
Yeah. But not so much the '80s Discord, but that early '90s.
Yeah,
Discord.
what was going on then?
The Lungfish guys.
Yeah. What was the one band? Kingfish. That was the one band they all like were into, and I was like, okay, let me check them out. I was like, okay.
Kingfish.
I like Shudder to Think. What's that?
Kingfish
No,
or
not Lungfish. There was a band called Kingfish from DC.
Oh, okay.
That was like a bunch of guys were really into. But yeah, it was so much fun.
I remember like buying a Boneless Ones record. Like Chris Celeste always looked down his nose at me whenever I bought anything. And then
not really. He may have looked like he was, but not really.
Well, I bought Boneless Ones record, and it seemed like I gained like respect in his eyes. Like I could see it. Like it was like, all right, that's cool.
When you're young, you can have a little more piss and vinegar to you. But especially 2 years in, I realized that all these people buying whatever they like is keeping us in business. And I was always in that mindset. Like, I might not have liked this band at all, but damn it, I'm going to sell you this Nine Inch Nails or Marilyn Manson CD because the lights are on.
Apollo Records, my friend. Rest in peace, Gary.
Gary.
Oh my God, Jay Hartnett worked there for like about 2 weeks, but
I could do a whole show about Gary.
Oh my God,
nobody knew him. Yeah, none of you guys really knew him, probably.
The guy. Well, I lived around the corner, like down the street above, where Preservation Hall used to be.
Yep,
across.
Yep.
I lived up there for a year, and I'd go to Gary, pretty much after I got my coffee, and he turned me on to Rage Against the Machine when there was like a demo. It was like a tape. Yeah. I feel like I don't sound like a hipster talking about it, but like nobody had heard this stuff. He would cut these amazing hip hop comps. I mean, they were just incredible. What? Sorry, go ahead.
If he liked you, you got a glimpse of the pure genius of him. He was in the 70s. He wrote for Bomp magazine, which is like one of the first independent fanzines of punk and new music and stuff like that. And they put together he did a fanzine out of Buff State called the Shakin' Street Gazette that had all these writers who went on to become fairly well known in independent journalism. But by the time he opened that store, it was he was so set in his ways. I bought so many amazing records from him. But my favorite thing was it's funny you mentioned Rage Against the Machine. He used to write for this magazine called New York Rocker, and he reviewed the REM demo tape before they even had a record out, and he praised it beyond belief. And to be reviewed like that in New York Rocker was a huge thing. And even REM in a Greatest Hits album 15 years ago, whatever, talked about how excited they were to see Gary Speranza's review of them. And so in 2018, what happens? But Mike Mills from REM comes in the old Pink, and I start talking to him, and next thing I know, we're hanging out for like 3 hours in the DJ booth, and he just keeps talking about, oh, it's Gary, and I was like, but I got to fill him in on like the bad side of Gary too. But you know, it was tough. He had the best records, the best.
He really did, and he was clever about it, and he wasn't. I don't know. There's something I wanted to say about him, but he really was not. Yeah, you had to find it.
Yeah, he was like all three of the characters in High Fidelity, all rolled up in the
Yeah,
you know.
thank
I mean,
you.
like he would
That's
kick you out of the store if you didn't like what you were asking. That kind of a guy. I hated that side of him.
Probably more astute in observation than I would have come up with, but yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Gary was he was an interesting dude.
I'd walk in there in like '86. He'd be like, "You should check out this band, My Bloody Valentine." I'm like, "Oh, sure." What is, their first single, and I'd be like, "Oh yeah, okay, this is up your alley,"
I'm pretty sure some of them were poached from your shop. I'm pretty sure some of them were poached from BNY too, because they had like saw blades, slashes into the back of the diamond case. So, somebody marked their property.
Yeah.
And somehow they wound up in his shop. But he was.
I used to love. I used to love when there would be like a big show in town, and the bands would come in. I remember like Snapcase would always bring bands in, and I just remember like meeting Refused when they were all like, I make this joke all the time, but when they were all like 15 years old, and they all came in. Donuts. I remember Donuts was always like playing shows because the Victory and stuff like that. And it was just a lot of fun because it was like, even though I wasn't a part of any of that scene, it was like really cool to see like I know I'm using like catchwords here, but the unity involved, like all you guys were like you could tell who the good eggs and the bad eggs were, and you could tell like who really cared and who was just kind of there. It was a lot of fun, and you guys and the store always appreciated support, like all the people gave us. It was great.
I think
it always annoys me when
knowing that it was like a home away from home thing, and I live way the fuck out in Lancaster.
Mm-hmm.
And
I saw your house once.
You were you sat under the table and you wouldn't buy.
No. I remember Frank was playing the Sabres theme on your family organ.
We were breaking, and we went in the hot tub. It was just like so nice to not go home for me because my house is a little chaotic, and to come to Home of the Hits and you and Slither and you guys to be patient enough to like let me and a girl like hang out in our freaking Catholic school uniforms, maybe to your benefit, but we would just look through records and
wait. That was you? That was you? You got to remember, we were like right up the street from Nardis.
I buy like 1 7-inch, and you'd be like, "Okay, I'm good," or you'd give like new music ideas, even though you may not have liked that music, or just looking at Fires show, or looking at Maximum Rock and Roll zine for an hour, but not buying it.
Yeah. Well, the cool thing about Maximum Rock and Roll was that you made no money selling it, but then if you saw something in it and you bought the record, then it was like, it really.
I was telling somebody recently about one of my big regrets of not buying a record was not buying. You offered to sell me an SOA 7-inch on green for like $25, and I was like, I don't think I really want that, and like. Now, like I'm like, why didn't I do that? That was probably the dumbest thing I ever did. Like one of the dumbest things.
And I bought it before Home of the Hits started in '82. It was a store called Play It Again Sam's. It was a couple doors down where Hand of Doom was for a while in that house. That's a whole story we can go into if we do if we end up doing that Home of the
When
Hits
we
thing
do
talked
the
about.
episode, yes, when we
So,
do the episode, not it.
Yeah, I may repeat a few of these stories, but I'm 55, so I repeat myself a lot. The thing was, I bought that 45 from Playing Against Sam's because I was like this like sophomore or junior in high school in Orchard Park, and I was the punk kid, you know, in Orchard Park.
Mhm.
And, you know, I was wearing an Oxford shirt, but I'm the punk kid, you know. And then this woman Deborah who worked there was like, "Hey, you like Black Flag? You should check this out." And I'm like, "Oh my god, the guy from Black Flag had a band before Black Flag." I was like, "Oh yeah," and I took it home, and it was like all my friends came over, and we just sat there listening to it. You know, like a whole new another whole nother door opened up. You know, it was so cool. The coolest thing about Home of the Hits, and especially the predecessor, Playing at Sam's, was that the amount of women who worked in that store was very large. And so when you're a high school kid and you're walking in there and people like the late Mary Mosier or Deborah or Jennifer, whose brother owned Playing Against Sam's, and she started Home of the Hits when he sold her the business. And you have them like these really cool, you know, slightly older women are like going, you know, you should check out Echo and the Bunnymen or, you know, whatever. And you sit there and you're just like, okay, you know, and then like, but they treated you like you were like one of them, and that's
Yeah.
I wasn't always successful, but that's what I tried to do.
How is Jen?
You know, because of how I got treated, like Kelly was saying, it was my refuge. You know.
Yeah.
Going
How's Jen doing?
She's good. She's good. I at the beginning of the pandemic, like last June or July, last June, I was talking to her a lot because I was using her as a job reference, and so then and it's kind of tailed off, but she's awesome, but she's also like she kind of vanishes, and she likes it that way. She never wanted to be like the face of anything. She always just liked having this cool record store and having cool people in it. And, she's like the older sister I wished I had. She was always like she was great to me for 15 years. I worked for her, and then many years before I started shopping there in '79. I want to say. So, but it was how awesome was that?
That was
Yeah,
an
I mean
anchor.
there doesn't. Yeah, a day doesn't go by where I don't miss Home of the Hits.
Yeah,
Home of the Hits was the anchor. That's the first time I trickled out of my little suburban existence in Amherst and went down the west side. Jumped off the subway at Delavan and walked down, fucked around in Elmwood and hit Home of the Hits. And,
Yeah.
I found some albums I still own to this day on that day when I was like 12.
Yeah. I
I
mean,
look through my records and I see any of those price tags. Just
the dots.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, the dots.
The like rounded edges with the
Yeah,
with the
just
4.00, especially on the 45s.
Yeah.
I get wistful for Home of the Hits, and then I get wistful for when you could buy 7 inches for $3.
Yeah, there was no profit.
Well, I'm still
there was no
available.
real profit on the 45.
Sorry.
So funny. I look at like there's a 45 like for sale, like new, and it's like $12, and I'm like, what is this? It's like it doesn't make any sense to me.
And the other option for
I
stuff
don't know
I
if you
couldn't
can
get.
see it.
Question.
I got sent a bag and I framed it.
Oh, Kelly has a question.
What was the nightclub underneath Record Theater on Main Street?
Oh, that
was Jesus Christ. I saw SNFU
Comedy
there.
Trap?
No,
Comedy Trap?
Comedy Trap was on Hurdle, I think.
it was SNFU.
What?
No,
SNFU.
it's got like weird bands there, like Forgotten Rebels and
The
like,
Goo Goo Dolls did a New Year's show there, I remember. 89, 90. I came back from New York. I was working at Caroline.
You're exactly right.
The Goo Goo Dolls did a show, and I went to it because I remember they like welcomed me from the stage, and I thought, "Ooh, I've made it."
That's right. Tops was right there.
Yeah. It's driving me nuts.
This is
Yeah,
like
I
stuff.
can't think of the name. Like,
It's
I
horrible.
want to say it was like the balcony or the cafe or something like that. It has something.
Eric, you're like hanging out there watching all of us. How are you doing these days?
Yeah, like Artie Quitchoff probably was doing those shows, and maybe Brian, and I think that's around the time they started working together. Or maybe it was like a while before that. But Artie is now one of the owners of the Town Ballroom, and then Brian, of course, is in Nashville now. I gotta. Oh, I do have one story. I thought about this way earlier when you guys were talking about New York bands. The coolest thing about living in New York for like '89 and '90 when I worked at Caroline was like we had a bunch of bands. Yeah, like we didn't put out their best records necessarily, but Warzone was on our label, and like I was not into New York hardcore or anything like that, but I was around people who were, and but Ray Capo was probably one of the nicest human beings I ever met in any. Oh yeah.
Oh, from
This is
Youth
where
and
the
Stay?
stories. Yeah, so this is where the story's going. So we put out that what's the one with the real like weird metallic cover? It looks like a metal record.
The third
No,
one,
it doesn't exist.
Yeah,
I am to blame for that.
That was the one I had to call stores all over the East Coast and convince them they needed it in their store. So you know how miserable my job was at that one. So they one day we were on the 11th. We were on
Harder than selling the album with a giant iron cross in the front of it.
Yeah. We are in this. We're on the 11th floor of this building on 26th Street, in between 6th and 7th, and one day, and we had a warehouse in the back half before it got bigger, and they had to move the warehouse off to the Catskills area or whatever. So all the records were in the same building as we are, and then one day I was walking.
House?
What's that?
Was it the old Equal Vision loft?
No. This was like a corporate. This was like a whole floor of a building. I went in that loft once with the copper guys, but so I'm walking to get a lunch on 26th Street, and this young Hispanic kid is walking by, and he's got the "Don't forget the struggle, don't forget the street" shirt on, and I was like, "Oh, hey man, I work at their record company. It's right upstairs." And he didn't speak a word of English. And I was just like, "Oh, yeah." And he just looked, stares at me. And I was like, "Okay, that's so weird." And so I go up and I tell the warehouse guys, like, "Oh, I just ran into a kid wearing a warehouse." And he goes, and they were like, "Look out the window." And I looked down, and they were working on the building, in the back of the building. And there were all these like workers down the bottom. Somebody had thrown the window or shirt out the window. And they ended up like grabbing it and wearing it. And I just thought that was so cool because I was like, "Oh, I met a Warzone fan out there." And they're like, "Oh, yeah, we chucked that out the window last week."
I've never been more bummed out by any record that I got than I was when I discovered the third Warzone LP existed.
Dude, try buying it on the day it came out.
Dude, so here's the thing. I loved all of it, and that record I never even heard of. And then I was just like looking on eBay one day when I was like 17 or whatever, and I'm like, "What the fuck is this? This is the coolest thing in the world. I'm going to buy this." And I got it, and I was just like, I think I hate Warzone now. I don't.
Now you know how I feel about Metallica. I used to freaking love Metallica. We were on tour, actually, Chris, and we were in Stevens Point, Wisconsin. We went to a record shop, and we found that they had the brand new Metallica album, and there was a note, and there says, "This is not going to be like anything you ever heard before." And we put it on, and we're like, "Yeah, you're absolutely fucking right. This is shit."
Which album was it?
Terrible. Oh,
Which
Black album.
Oh, the Black
album, yeah.
You know, you guys probably remember the Sky Room. All the shows at the Sky Room. Metallica played there in '83 during a snowstorm, and I was in Fredonia, so I wouldn't have gone anyway because I didn't care about metal at the time at all. But my friend rode a snowmobile from Allentown to South Buffalo to see the show. There was a big snowstorm in Buffalo, so like 20 people were there. But he like parked the snowmobile on the side and went in. And
So good.
If I had gotten the call like 3 months before the album came out, I would have been on that snow machine straddling it just going hard to that show. But after oh god damn.
I knew we did put out a bad, at least one Bad Brains record. We put out Quickness. And that was fun to work.
That's good.
Dr. No and HR were at our Christmas party in 1989.
Oh my god!
There's got to be a story about that. I
Well,
feel like there's stories about HR.
There was this billiard hall on the first floor of the building we were in, and so they rented it out. And basically, you know that scene in Fast Times when the van door opens and the big cloud of marijuana smoke comes out?
Yeah.
That was exactly what it felt like when I walked out of there, because it was just nuts. Because like everybody who worked there was like, ex-hardcore or ex-punk people, who were like now in the business.
Excellent.
Yeah, it was a good time. They were really nice, but you could tell they were all like, they didn't give a shit about anything. They were just wanting to get high and hang out and eat food.
So I suspect you guys are seeing a lot more shows than I am these days. What was the last show you guys been to?
Well, pre-pandemic, I saw Sloan. That was the last one for me.
It would be Murphy's Law at Mohawk.
Oh yeah.
And then before that was Machine Head at Town Ballroom. Those are my last two.
How is Machine Head at Town Ballroom? Like, how does Machine Head hold up 30 years later?
They were amazing. I will completely attest that they really knocked it out of the park.
Nice.
I mean, it's not even 100% my thing, but they did very well to play like their full-length albums in their entirety. And Murphy's Law is just a bunch of maniacal chaos, and
Murphy's Law is Murphy's Law.
Pandemic, and they're passing around bottles of Jägermeister, and
yeah, they came by the old Pink afterwards, and I talked with Jimmy for a little bit, and I got to tell him the story when they played at UB with the Beastie Boys.
Mm-hmm.
They and Public Enemy were the first group on the bill, which was like nobody knew who they were at the time. They were like, the first album had just come out, and I remember there was this punk rock guy, Troy, who's now in the local band Tension, that reformed. Like he bumps into us like toward the back during Murphy's Law. He's like, "Oh, give me a boost up." So my best friend and I like lift him up, and he crowd rides all the way to the front of the arena, and you just see these bouncers like grab him and like throw him. Like he was tossed out. And I was I got to tell Jimmy the story about that because we were talking about the Beastie Boys tour. Like it was so weird because you got all these suburban kids waiting to see the Beastie Boys, and there's Murphy's Law up there, and like Public Enemy with the S1Ws, and like that was mind blowing shit because I knew the record, but I had no idea what they looked like or what they were like, and they walk out there marching in military precision, and that was really like something else. But they were incredible. Oh, so good.
It's funny. Jimmy lives in my neighborhood, and every now and then I see him. But we don't know each other, so it's kind of like look at each other and then go on our business.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of mutual friends. Like, you guys need to meet, and I'm like, all right, maybe one day.
Yeah, you know, it's like you guys run into each other on the street. You give that knowing look, like we've lived the same life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Definitely, you can tell when somebody, like, I'm at Wegmans, like someone will see me and be like, is that dude? And I'll be like,
so, Chris, I just want to very quickly defer you to the comments. And it says, Dave Anchovies, Smalley is fixing up his Parler.com account. That just totally freaking cracked me up. After our discussion about, where Dave Smalley's gone in his life. That just totally cracks me up.
Yeah,
I saw Dave post that when it showed up on the screen, and that was really funny.
Brilliant.
Dave's awesome. He had that band. He had that store Spiral Scratch in Buffalo for quite a few years.
Yes. I remember Dave.
Yeah, and he was involved in a lot of like cool Buffalo like garage punk bands. I don't know how else to.
Was he in Joseph's? Yeah. Oh, there's somebody. Holy shit.
Yeah,
There's some pre-COVID action you're not going to see for a while.
You never know with Jimmy Gestapo. Come on.
yeah. I was just gonna say that it was that live at Wuhan or whatever. Patient Zero is like right in the
Taking 12/31/19 Wuhan.
Yeah.
That could be a meme I could put out.
Totally.
Patient Zero.
As always, great to see you guys. Derek, I haven't seen you for a long time. What are you up to?
Me?
Yeah.
Not much. I don't know. Hanging out, being a dad.
Yeah.
That's about it.
All right.
I mean, if you're asking
Hanging out
about
in the corner there.
shows, the show I went to was Terror.
Sorry?
Sugar City.
Where was it?
Terror at Sugar City.
The Secret Show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They played there before they played the Every Time I Die shows. When they played last and Every Time I Die had their thing.
I forgot about that. Not that I
Sugar
was
City
there,
was a
but-
cool place, so I'm sad it didn't survive.
Yeah.
That was a fun show for most of us.
But did you put your hand in shit there too, or something? Or what?
Didn't no, I didn't.
No, I think
There was a little mishap at that show that involved some facial surgery and so on.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Someone lost their teeth and yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, bad. I actually went to that Lenny Lashley show.
I was there too. Yeah.
That might have been the last show I went to. But
I went and saw the Get Up Kids at Rec Room like a couple days before everything shut down, and it was, it was fun, but also it was probably the worst time that I've ever seen them.
So Thorns, who's going to sit in with us when we do the Cannibal Corpse episode. So anybody watching this, we're doing a Cannibal Corpse episode in a couple weeks. He was like TMing and doing merch for Get Up Kids. So I'm curious to see if you had a positive or negative interaction with him in your attempts to get merch.
I mean, their merch was terrible, so I didn't
To
try
Get
to
Up
get
Kids.
in.
I mean, come on.
But yeah, no, it was really weird. It was like, so this band that opened for them, they apparently brought their entire extended families to the show, and their extended families basically stood in the dead center of the room, right in front of the stage. So nobody who actually liked the band was anywhere near the front. And then on top of that, the Get Up Kids, who have they just put out their 6th, 7th LP, whatever it is. And they basically played one song off the new record that nobody cares about. One song off the new record that nobody cares about. Straight through.
I mean, you put out a new record. That's what you got to do.
Well, you don't have to do it to a degree that it actually makes nobody engage with your set at all. You don't have to play 10 songs off the new record.
True.
You got to push it a little bit, but you don't need to completely undercut
bring the people to the new music, right?
Does it feel weird to any of you guys being into a band called the Get Up Kids when you're in your 40s?
Does it feel weird to be into a band called Cannibal Corpse when you're in your 50s?
You got to ask those guys. But I was coming back from a gig in Toronto in 2016, and you'll understand. And I pull up to the border, and I've got Nexus, but they was closed though sometimes. So the guy starts engaging me in conversation at 2 a.m. And he just goes, "Oh, where were you?" And I was like, "Oh, I went up to Toronto to see the band." He just goes, "Oh, what was the name of the band?" And he's looking at my ID. And I was 48, I think, at the time. And he's just like, "Oh, what was the name of the band?" And I go, "Teenage Fan Club." And he looks at me and goes, "Why is a man in his late 40s going to see a group called Teenage Fan Club?" And I said, because 30 years ago when they formed the band, they probably weren't thinking, this is going to be awkward when we're in our 50s. And he was just like, "Okay, here you go."
Anytime I drive up for a show, I have to when they ask, "Oh, who are you going to go see?" You have to go through the list of the bands that are playing. You're just "Oh, I'm going to go see Death Threat." No, Terror, no. Hatebreed, no. And then you just pick whichever is the most acceptable band name.
I know, I sound like Matt Gates, you know what I mean? Like, I'm going to see Teenage Fan Club. Yeah. In the 90s, we went up once, and the guy's like, who are you going to see? And we're like, Buffalo Tom. And he was like, oh, they're awesome. I wish I was going too. And I was like, get in. You know?
I went up, I came up probably about 10 years ago, right before my twins were born. I came up just for like sort of a last sort of chance to sort of see the city and hang out and see the falls. And it was the middle of winter. And that's the best time to see Buffalo in the falls because you don't see shit like that anywhere else. Like you don't see the falls like that. So I took a camera. I crossed the border with my passport. And got waved into Canada. Took a bunch of pictures. You know, parked up at the parkway over on the falls side. And took a bunch of pictures of how the ice sort of flows off the lamps with the wind, and it's just absolutely stunning. And I took some great photographs, and I had a couple hours to burn, so I did that and stuck my camera back in the trunk. And Butterfly Conservatory is closed, so I screwed that and went back over the border and heading back in the States. And this guy's like, he's got this like Louisiana type accent. He's like, you expect me to believe that you went over there for an hour and a half to take photographs? And I'm like, I don't really have a better explanation. I did. He's like, well, we'll see. Okay, pop your trunk. I'm like, okay. Pop the trunk, and the only thing sitting there is a camera. Goes to the trunk and asked me about 20 minutes of questions. I'm like, fuck, man. Finally went back across. I was like, yeah, this sucks. I just drove to the fucking airport, went home.
In 2000, it was November 2016, right after the election. I was coming over the Whirlpool Bridge, the Nexus Bridge. So Nexus, you're supposed to like kind of go through really quick. And so I pull over, and I one of my son's friends lives in Toronto, so I dropped him off at the bus station there so the kid could take a bus back to. So I come back into America, and the guy at the Nexus thing, he's fucking Russian. And it was like just after Trump got elected. And like there's this guy with a Russian accent, with a Russian name tag, like looking at my ID, and I'm like, it started already. It's all over. It started. Oh my God. Like I was already stressed out about the world already. And then all of a sudden, like there's this Russian guy going, what were you doing? And I was like, I was taking someone back. Am I going to jail?
There's a huge influx of Russians in the in the movie TV industry right now, as far as like background acting and stuff goes. And around the same time, I too was like, where are all these Russians coming from? Any of them? What the fuck is going on?
Wait, what part of Brooklyn? Are you
Cold
in Brooklyn,
War kids,
right?
man.
Are you in Brooklyn or
I'm
Philly?
in Queens.
You're in Queens.
I'm in Queens. Yeah. There's not many Russians in Queens, but Brooklyn's full of them.
Yeah. I'm just wondering where all the people who are getting priced out in New York are ending up, because it's got to be insane.
Yeah, right.
West Side.
They're getting pushed deeper into Queens and into New Jersey.
And Providence, frankly. So, BRB, gentlemen.
That's crazy.
Wow.
Trying to think what it is.
There's one show that was one of my favorites, and I can't place the fourth band if anyone can refresh my memory. I'm trying to write all this shit down. It was a Blind Melons. It was Snapcase, Sick of It All, Orange 9mm,
and Civ.
One other band.
Civ.
And Civ. Or was it H2O?
It was right before Snapcase went on tour with Sick of It All. That was like a beautiful show because everyone was like super pumped. They were celebrating. They were going on their first big deal thing.
That wasn't Civ. That wasn't Civ.
H2O then. It was H2O.
I don't think H2O was around then.
I don't think it was H2O.
I wish they weren't.
Ooh, easy.
Shots fired.
In that time period, you're talking about Buffalo Bum. Take it easy.
I saw it on the Buffalo Hardcore page. But I can't remember.
Sick of It All.
What.
What
If it was
was the
Sick
third band?
Snap Case,
Orange 9mm was on it, you said? Did you say Orange 9mm?
Snapcase and Sick of It All.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was
Was it
H2O
Korn?
at Blind Melons.
Yeah,
Like
that,
H2O opened it.
I'm probably the least sure of that, but that's bringing it's making the synapses move there. I don't know. I just sold you guys the tickets. I have no idea what happened.
Yeah.
Like, last shows there,
For some reason, I think Korn played.
Left.
Korn never toured with Sick of It All. That never happened.
Korn,
they were supposed
to, but they didn't.
to.
Were any of you guys at were any of you guys at the show when Tool opened up for Zero Tolerance?
I was in Illinois at the time.
Scrapyard.
Bill Page was there.
Scrapyard.
Yeah, Bill Page was there.
The label wanted the label got Artie to they wanted Tool to play, and but nobody knew who they were yet. So they were like, oh, we can put them on a bill with like this local band that draws. So it was just basically to kind of give them a show here, kind of like when U2 opened up for Talus in 1980. It's like the Rosetta Buffalo stardom there.
On the Eddie Eric episode, he was like, "Yeah, Tool, like they're a good band," and like blah blah blah. Then Eric's like, "They suck. They're terrible. They suck."
They had a bunch of Kenmore guys, the Green Jello guys, all had a big hand in helping them because they were Maynard and the guitar player named, I don't know. They all used to hang out at this loft on Sunset that Green Jello had. And so like early Tool started in this loft. And like one of the guys from Kenmore ended up, two of the people from Kenmore from that scene ended up working on Mr. Show, which still to my mind must have been the greatest job in the world for no money. But yeah, so like the Tool guys are all like really big into like the Kenmore history, There's a lot of cool history from musicians from Kenmore who have gone on to do like really cool things.
I picked up a copy of the Ramrods record. I don't remember, I don't think I ever heard them.
Jiving and Twisting.
Yeah, it wasn't what I was expecting, but I was really impressed that they put it out themselves, it looked like, for the most part.
Yeah. They were all like,
at that time.
They're all like 15, 16, 17 years old.
And they look like it, too. Like, they totally look it.
Oh, yeah. Trying to think
this brings a question maybe you can answer. I don't know if Mike Jeffers is still watching or not, but Mike Jeffers contends that Tension was the first hardcore band in Buffalo. What's your take on? What's your hot take on that?
I don't know if they were the first because it all depends on how you define hardcore. See, I think of Tension as a punk band, not as a like a hardcore band, because like they were drinking and they were smoking and they were partying like their faces off. So if hardcore is like more of that, like it's that gray area, I don't know where the line is defined. And that's what always got me in trouble because I had no idea if I was being cool or not. But but the whole thing is like I always think of them more punks. They had mohawks. To me they were a punk band. But that's kind of like I don't know. I don't want to like dictate how other people judge music. But the Femmes were one of the earlier ones.
Oh, the Femmes.
There was a lot of. There were a lot of cool bands, but like the band that I'm in, the Jumpers, they were like pretty much we're in 1977 when they started. Well, they started before that, but when they first really started in 77, they're basically like the Flaming Groovies meet the MC5, but they were a punk band because they didn't play, Bob Seger covers, shit like that in cars. So,
I would love to hear Flaming Groovies cover freaking Bob Seger.
Yeah, not the current Flaming Groovies, but yes, the old Flaming Groovies.
But just a blend of that just sounds fantastic.
I'd love to hear the MC5 doing Rambling Amblin' Man myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Bob Seger system is kind of like the MC5. But regardless,
They would tour an airbrushed van, of course.
Yeah, that's an old Econoline from the 70s. The Fibs record was the first. Stop that! I'm on to you, Palumbo. The whole thing. The Fibs record is probably one of the first real punk records that I know of in the Buffalo scene. I can't remember the exact year, but Go to a Party and Act Like an Asshole. That was when you got that record as a sophomore in high school. It was just like, oh my God, And then to become friends with all those guys later was really cool because they were such a big influence. Mark Freeland is the David Bowie of Buffalo, but nobody ever heard of him. The guy was just so incredible.
We've all heard of him.
Such a nice guy. He lived around the corner from Home of the Hits. When he found out in 2000, when I told him in 2003 I was buying a house in Kenmore, he made me a map of the stars of Kenmore, where every musician that had ever been in the Kenmore band lived. He's like, I wish I can't find it. I have no idea where it is. It's in a box.
My sister used to have an original Freeland painting because she used to hang out with him.
Wow.
I'm sure she hates every day that she doesn't have it anymore. I'm sure she lost it in some move or something. I used to remember it was like a Doberman coughing up blood and some other thing. And my dad was always like, that dog has AIDS. And I was like, how do you know? I don't understand. Trust me, that dog has AIDS. What?
He made a book with another artist, Lou Canizero, who's a pretty Mike Jeffers, what did I just miss? I was totally dismissing your take on whether tension was hardcore. So anyway, that's what you missed. So he had Lou Canizero's this artist guy. He had a Throbbing Gristle style band called Powder French that opened up for the Minutemen nonetheless. So that was really bizarre of all things to see they did a Throbbing Gristle cover of the song Discipline, and it was broad daylight on the Buff State quad. And this guy's going, Discipline! And all this racket. And then another band that opened up that show actually was the Beaumonts, who were a suburban. There were three guys from Orchard Park that I went to high school with, grew up with. And the guitar player left. So they got this guy they met at Buff State who wanted to be in a punk band and play guitar named John Resnick. And he was a guitar player for a little while. And so, my first meeting, John was he was in my friend's band, and, he had this big, super hair, and they played, suburban angst punk type thing, kind of Orange County punk, maybe. And then they did some recordings, and then what's funny, too, is, Rob Takak, his cousin Paul was who was in that band and one of my best friends. So I think that's how Robbie and Johnny met and became a band that everyone knows. So that was kind of cool, to be around there. But I remember I lent them some musical equipment, and John didn't pay his rent, so the landlord took everything, and I lost half my drum set. Bummer. I gotta remind him about that next time I talk to him because I think he can afford to replace it now.
Yeah, I think you should be able to handle that, Bill.
Yeah.
I'm writing down your comments here, Chris, on the sidebar, and somebody mentioned something about manic depression and baseball furies.
Yes, apparently they think you were baseball furies. Were you?
I was baseball furies for about a minute.
Oh, no shit.
What did you play in the baseball furies? I don't remember.
For about 3 months, and then.
Who did you fill in for someone, or were you?
No, we started it. It was Odie and Jim and me, and
was it
Chris Malloy?
Okay, yeah.
So
that was before Aaron was involved.
Right. So we got it up and running. I didn't record them. We had a practice space up in a building up on the corner, up on Main Street, down right before the subway comes up.
Sidway building.
Sidway, but thank you. And actually, I've completely forgotten.
It's condos now, I think, or something.
I've heard that too. So I had to I went to Rhode Island to work for the summer, which I usually did, and they filled the hole with the guitarist, and that was the end of it. But then they moved on to Chicago and so on. But if you listen to that stuff was just raw.
I loved them.
Was so much fun.
Yeah.
I really love those guys.
Jim. I mean, they're all great. Odie's back in town.
I heard that.
Yeah.
Jim's in Milwaukee, I think now.
Jim.
He was in Chicago forever.
Yeah. Valoy's a lawyer down in Miami area.
Yeah.
Actually sent a client down there recently.
Oh my God, I can't remember the drummer's name.
Chris Valoy.
No. Wait. No, he's still here. No, the drummer. It must have been the second drummer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, maybe a later drummer. I don't know. Dave Palumbo might fill me in. I'm totally blanking on his name. He lives inside. He's from South Buffalo. They were. Every time I saw them, they were just fantastic.
Odie was so much. The way he said it was perfect. We strung our strings down like a half step below, a la dwarves, and it really it made a good sound. It really did.
What else? There's like the Blow Tops, all those Buffalo punk bands. That was a really amazing scene.
That was a great scene. I've been following sort of that scene and listened to the Dirt Bombs, and I don't know if you guys Detroit Cobras and shit like that.
Great band. The best thing about the Blow Tops, Aaron's band.
I haven't heard that.
They were the part of that scene. I'm trying to think who else was in the band. I'm blanking because I didn't go over my notes. They were on a split single with the White Stripes before anyone knew what they were. So as soon as the White Stripes became famous, that single was worth like $500 or whatever. And
Wow.
so the band doesn't even have their own copies of it anymore because they can't get them. It's kind of sucks. It's like I'm on this record, but I can't afford to buy it.
Yeah. So Eric, let me ask you a question, because no one seems to have a copy of this. And I feel like you might. Do you have any of the Painkiller stuff?
Oh God, no, I don't. Did they make any records?
No one have it.
I think they. I don't remember if they made records at all.
Johnny Chow said that he has a record, but he needs to find. And I've heard that Paulie has a bunch of records somewhere. And I lost my tape decades ago.
I used to see Paul all the time, like in the 90s. It's kind of tailed off, but I haven't seen him at all in years. I always liked Paul. We got along really good. He was actually, the first time I met him was in that John Resnick's apartment, which was kind of near where, behind Mr. Goodbar or something, on one of those side streets near Buffalo. And I just remember, my first, I was still pretty much a suburban kid, even though I was in Fredonia, but it was you had John with the big hair, and Paul he was punk as fuck at that point. He was just he was
real.
real.
To cut you off, but Dave Anchovies, you say you have the Painkillers record? I need a copy of it.
Ooh.
I'm desperate for a copy of it. Either
recorded
or burned or whatever. I'm desperate for a copy of it.
I had right when the COVID thing happened and employment things happened, I ended up having to get rid of some records. Because I was like, these are worth too much. But there was one record I sold that I'm totally facing a
Dave Vincent, my God, how does everyone have this but me? Unacceptable. Sorry.
I don't even remember them making a record.
Well, Dave, can you specify you have an album, but which album do you have?
As far as I know, there's only one.
Yeah.
Good on you.
And Dave Vincent, I'm super stoked that you're actually watching us. And if you want to jump on, we could totally bring you on for a minute.
It'd be great to see your face, Dave. It's been a while.
Where'd Eric go?
Huh?
There you are.
Yeah.
Derek's
Where
gone.
did Derek go? Yeah, where'd Derek go?
The only one. Nice, Dave.
Mm-hmm. Guess we're not talking about favorite shows anymore, huh?
So, Eric, are you
Got
still,
off track.
are you still
Come on, Mark.
playing?
All right, Mark. What's your favorite show?
My favorite show?
Yes, I'm sorry, let me interrupt you. Dave Anchovies, I 100% need a copy of that record. That's the tape that I had that I lost decades ago. And I'm probably not going to sleep tonight. I want it so bad.
What? What's the name of the record that you're looking for?
Good Morning America.
I hope Kelly puts her fire out before it burns the house down.
Oh my God, I'm so stoked. I desperately need a copy of that record, and I'm going to stop now. I'm going to mute myself before I totally fucking punish everyone. Mark, favorite show. Sorry, go.
Hold on a second. Who else can go?
He's checking his database for shows he's been at.
Exactly. Looking through my pictures. That one was good.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, you have photos of everything.
Yes.
Some stuff.
Kelly, you know where this ends. Careful. Oh, shit.
I remember seeing Chamberlain, I think, with New Rising Suns.
That's a good show.
And I just remember seeing so many disappointed hardcore kids at that show.
I love Chamberlain to this day, so.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sprigg was really into them. I forgot who else, but I remember, I mean, I'll go on record as saying this, but I always thought, Scott Vogel had no time for me whatsoever. I know it's not, but at the time I was like, oh, that kid just doesn't like me, and I just felt like that was it.
Yeah.
So we were standing there and Chamberlain's playing, and there's all these split lip bands this isn't happening. They got to go back, or whatever. But he was cool. He walked over to me. He goes, "Do you like this music?" And I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "What?" And since I'm like, "Well, what is it?" I go, "This is good rock and roll music." And he's like, walked away, and I was like, "Okay, I'm cool now." Scott has acknowledged me.
Oh, Kelly, thank God you're back. You're worried about your house. It's gonna burn down. You good?
I really dug that Chamberlain record. That was good stuff.
They have a new one out. Do you know that?
Yeah, I haven't heard it yet.
It's good. It's good.
Dave, we love you if you're still listening. If not, you missed it.
Pop in.
Yeah, there we go. There's Sprigg.
I feel like Chamberlain was way better than Split.
I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, Split was a more hardcore band, but they were a better band.
Right?
I stand on the rock that Split Lip is better, and Fate's Got a Driver is one of my favorite records, and Chamberlain never did anything for me.
Yeah,
looks like Dave Vincent has low battery. He's gonna.
Yeah, but I mean, I also have tattoos of gorillas holding bats, so my opinion's questionable at best.
My favorite show, though, as far as favorite shows, was the Apocalypse '97 show. If you remember that show, where all the Buffalo hardcore bands of my era of Buffalo hardcore all played together. Was Despair, Envy, Union, No Reason. I got to fly right here, Lockjaw, Pride, Counter Strike, and Snapcase also played a secret set at that show. Let me share a picture. Were you here for that, Chris?
They were awesome.
Okay, my question, I think you just answered it. Are the directions to the club written on the flyer?
Yeah, it looks like it.
It wasn't a Buffalo show unless it explained how to come from the east on the 90, from the west on the 90, from Canada. That was my favorite thing on the flyers.
That probably marked the end of I still go to hardcore shows and stuff, but that was the end of it wasn't definitely the end, but it was the end of hardcore for me, kind of, in a way. That was that show was everything that came to a head, and that was it. That was
the Mercury Theater. Holy shit!
Yeah, man.
I moved. I was living out of town by that point, and I remember hearing about it, and then it felt like there was silence. You're right. After a while.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah, hardcore kind of died for me a little bit after that.
Yeah, no, I agree. That show was a lot of fun too. Me and Balf were walking around with a marker telling people to X up or shut up.
Really?
Yeah, and then I left halfway through the show to get tattooed, and only got tattooed for 10 minutes and came back.
Really?
What could they
Yeah,
like?
like, dude, it was just Dirk who tattooed the skin art.
tattoo.
Yeah, like I love Dirk, but sometimes he would get in a mood and like he'd set up and he'd tattoo you for like 10, 15 minutes, and he was pretty fast. So but I was like, really, that's it? And he's like, yeah, that's all we're doing today. I was like, I fucking walked all the way here from fucking Mercury Theater for this.
Mercury. There were a lot of hardcore shows at the show place, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That show too, the Apocalypse show. I think Despair played. They played like Denver or something, like either the day before or 2 days before that, and they drove all the way back to play this show, which I thought was really awesome.
It would have
I
to be
think
2
that
days. There's no way you can drive.
Well,
that
2 days then. It's like 25 hours or something, right?
Yeah.
I think
For
I think
Denver.
when I went to go get tattooed, that's when Despair played because I don't remember seeing them.
Did they play last? I thought they must have played last, or who would have played last?
I
That
thought
show?
Snapcase played last.
No, Snapcase played in the middle.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Snapcase definitely played in the middle of that show.
Are you sure?
I'm
I could
sure.
have sworn they were last.
I'm gonna text Jeremy Smith right now and see.
Do you remember that Dan, the owner of the Mercury, hired security for the show because when he was told Snapcase was going to play, he thought a ton of people were going to be there. Then he was pissed that they weren't on the flyer and no one knew.
Yeah.
But Dan who booked the place?
The guy who owned Mercury or whatever, and he tried to
don't
get
know.
Jeremy Smith to pay the security people, and Jeremy wouldn't do it.
Were there any security people there?
Yeah, it was like
I
idiot
don't really
from
remember.
South Buffalo.
Didn't you guys police yourselves? The
Yeah.
the from all the stories earlier. The Nazi slapping. That still is like, you know what's funny is like going back for a second, like I totally couldn't picture anything, and then at one point you mentioned the name of the person who received the slap, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden I was like, oh my god, I do remember that person.
Yeah, it all comes back.
Yeah. I'm not
Honestly,
even
I
part of that
only-
scene.
I only really remember her because I was at a 7-second show at the Rock, and somebody said something to me about like WP skinheads, and I yelled out, "Nazi skinheads are fake skinheads." And Nazi Mike and Holly came up to me, and I was like, "Oh fuck, I'm gonna die," because it was fucking Nazi Mike. He was a fucking ranger, not like driving a ranger. He was a fucking airborne ranger.
Yeah.
And they start saying whatever they say to me, and I don't remember, but I do remember the Holly coming up real close and being like, you know, Buffalo would be a lot better off if something happened to Ralph, like he got stabbed or something. And I was just like, oh fuck, like I'm probably gonna get stabbed too. And during 7 seconds, you remember Psycho?
Yeah.
Eric,
Yeah.
Mark Abrams?
Yeah.
He stood behind me the entire time 7 seconds played to make sure like nothing happened.
That's cool. That's
Yeah,
cool.
he was such a good guy. Such a good guy. He had no reason to do that.
Like,
That shit pisses me off in a bad way, and I'll tell you why. My father was 14 years old when the Nazis invaded, so when I saw those fucking cunts at shows, I would just get pissed off. I mean, remember fucking Frank? One day, I think I was like 16 years old. I was like standing next to a friend. I'm like, I don't know why they let these fucking assholes into shows. What the fuck is the matter with these people? What is wrong with you? And he turns around and looks at me. He's like, oh, yeah, you hang out with Max, don't you? I'm like, yeah, I hang out. No, Max. Remember Max?
Yeah, rest in peace, Max.
No, dead. Yeah. But yeah, well, I used to. Yeah. Now you're a fucking hair farmer. I'm like, and you're still a cunt. Holy shit! Look at that. Just you can't give any room to these fucking nonsense. They fucking suck, man. And they're everywhere these days. They're fucking everywhere.
That's why
Driving me
I
nuts.
played.
Sorry, tirade.
Sorry.
Nice.
Those were the worst tickets because they always stuck together, and we'd always like accidentally give one extra one out. So then we'd be behind on, that's why like we had that 50-cent thing to make sure that if we ever like lost tickets, we didn't lose money on selling tickets for a show.
Yeah.
Wow.
Nothing was worse than telling someone they had to pay a 50-cent service charge, and nowadays you got to pay like $20 service charges, and it'd be like 50 cents. It's like, come on.
Jen
And I
yelled
answered
at
the
me one
phone.
time.
I answered the phone. 300. There we go.
Look at these.
It was an animal rights benefit.
I guess so.
You know, somebody was telling me, I think it was Farside, posted a thing how he got vaccinated in that room. They're doing vaccines at UB, and they're doing it in the Black Box Theater.
I did as well.
Oh, okay, yeah. So it is that room.
Yeah.
You want to get to the most sterile environment.
I did a stage dive at that show.
Nice.
The only time I'd ever did that, and boy, did I regret it.
I'm glad it worked out for you.
It did not work out for me.
During
I watched that crowd just open up, and I'm like, I'm hitting the ground. I'm hitting the ground.
Man, the last time I did a stage dive was like 2003. I was in San Francisco with Sweeper and Pat Rhodes. We went out to see Madball play a bunch of shows, and we were at the Pound in San Francisco, and Madball's playing, and I'm just like popping flips left and right, just going back and forth one side of the stage to the other. And like the fifth time that I went to the exact same space, just the whole crowd just fucking backed out, and I was, call it 6.5 feet above the ground at the peak of my dive, and I just landed flat on my ass on concrete, and I couldn't even like sit comfortably for 3 days.
During Zero Tolerance at the River Rock, I did a dive, and somehow a hole opened up somehow, and I like land in this hole, and then the hole closed, and I was like, I'm gonna die. And this kid Bob from North Tonawanda, I just see him come through the kids and like grab my hand and pull me up, and I was like, oh, you saved my life! Like it was just fucking ridiculous.
Man,
Dan, real quick, Dan. I also wrote for Smash, which is weird. I did reviews and stuff. That's a conversation for another time.
Do you guys remember? Like, I remember like one time going back to the right wing side. There was like that band No Alibi. They did a show with all white power bands. Do you remember when that happened?
Yeah, nobody to this day. I don't think anyone knows where it actually happened.
It was a show place. It was a show place. And
no, I got moved from the show place. I thought.
I guess. Maybe. All I know is that day was the worst day I worked at Home of the Hits, because everyone who came into town for that show went to the punk rock store. So and it was like at one point there's me and like maybe it was Slither or Chris Celeste, and there's like 30 skinheads in the store, and that was the day I was like, these guys are all just a bunch of pussies. What the fuck? Because like I'm just like sitting there trying to act like I'm like, but I'm like, and they're all like, oh, excuse me. I'm like, oh. Maybe at a show they get but they were all like really polite and friendly.
Well,
and I'm like,
do you guys remember the Agnostic Front show at the show place where all those dudes showed up and acted really tough in the pit? And before AF was done playing, everyone left. And they were like, yeah, we're the fucking baddest. And then they came outside and saw everybody like on the triangle and across the street. And they like wouldn't leave the front of, like, they wouldn't leave from under the awning of the show place for like 20 minutes. And then they all ran for their cars. And I was like, yeah, and that's the last anyone saw of them.
Yeah.
Wasn't there like a big to do at a Warp tour show at the Burger King? Like that's Syracuse
Warp tour that I got hurt at, and we ended up leaving early. And then Andy Williams and some other people came over to my apartment afterwards. I think did you live with us at the time, Mark?
I don't remember.
Came over and was telling us about how like they smashed out the windows of the cars that people were in, and were like, because they spent the whole day in the beer tent drinking until Sick of It All came on, and then they came out.
Yeah, I remember hearing about like the Syracuse Sluggers or something like that. Was that a thing?
Yeah, I don't think they. I think they kind of took blame for it. I don't know if they had anything to do with it. I remember
Sluggers they did, because they were going to what happened. The way I was told the story is that they were going to jump one of the main Slugger guys whose name I can't remember. And Buffalo had beef with those guys for a while. Like there was like a schism between Chris Smith and that guy and like some other shit. And Andy overheard them talking about that they were going to jump that dude.
I just remember
Andy went to him and was like, "Hey, this is about to happen." and then like Erie, Buffalo, and Syracuse just turned the tables on those guys.
I just remember Mike Ski being on top of a car, like punching a windshield. That's the only thing I remember.
I'm sure it's a story he doesn't necessarily want told now, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was a good fight.
Everyone's young ones.
But honestly, fuck those guys. I mean,
Yeah.
they felt you gotta realize there's gonna be more people that disagree with that viewpoint in that room. I don't. One of my biggest regrets with the Manic days is like, the days we had the fucking guys standing outside, and why don't we just have everybody just go outside and rush them and just beat the fucking pulp out of them and just fuck you all and get them out of here.
That's a lawyer talking.
You don't do that with these fucking people. You lose something. I see it happen every day too. Every day, I read the fucking newspaper. Every fucking day.
Yeah.
Driving me fucking crazy. I'm an old man now, shouting in my chair in my office.
Shaking my fist.
Exactly. Old man shakes his fist in the air. Right?
Shakes his fist at
Every
racist.
fucking day. Goddamn Nazis.
Mike Jeffers is feeling ignored.
Well, where is he?
He's in the comments.
The girls have to be asleep, Mike. Get your ass on here.
He has to
question.
Ooh, shots fired.
Chris, I threw Ben in on this and Bob too, but Ben, I think is 12 hours ahead of us. And Bob is wherever he is.
Yeah, so. Bob's making food for people right now.
Mm-hmm.
Can I
say when you go back to the
thank you again for putting this pod together. This is really fantastic.
Yeah, man. Thanks for checking it out. Kelly, finish your thought though.
Please, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
No. I'm sorry. I can't. It's like a little delayed. When my introduction to hardcore was actually John Salemi. He was my best friend's cousin, and we were 12, and he gave me a support tape, and that was, I'm like, what is this? And at the time, I was listening to like Black Sabbath from my aunt that listened to like metal, classic rock, and like Anthrax was coming out, the Buzzcocks, like little things that I was discovering more and more and more. And I'm 46, so that was like the little segue. And then it became finding these peers, which I had an older girl that was a skater chick, awesome woman. And there was all these dudes from Alden that were punk rock skinheads. Don't ask me what they were doing in the suburbs of Alden as punk rock skinheads, but they were fully. And we'd go fucking ride skateboards and blast music, and I was introduced to a lot of various music at that time. And some of them, they were all older than me, but they're the ones that got me to the river rock and taught me some stuff. And then I didn't really realize, like, I knew what Nazis were, obviously, but I also knew that there was this weird reference of, like, being a skinhead and being just a punk rock person and being whatever. But yet, one of the dudes was an African-American fellow that was an amazing skateboarder with this giant afro. So it was like this montage, and that was like when I was 12, 13. So, I mean, as I hate that whole scene of, obviously, as we all do, and it's just pure stupidity in a melting pot of America of skinhead and all this shit, but it at least gave you an idealism to develop the facet of your personality as a young person, especially in the music genre. And listening to different songs, like, there's some music that definitely had that undertone, maybe it wasn't a straight line. And then there was like things like you guys were mentioning, like Syracuse, Rochester people that were like hardline, Nazi, straight edge, vegan. We didn't like women that much, and people. There was a little crew of that. I remember that from the Earth Crisis regime a little bit. But you gotta have all that. You gotta have the shit, and you gotta have the awesome. Because we wouldn't have known all the music that we do today and be the people that we are without all the assholes and the great people. I think. My opinion.
That was cool. That was cool to hear that story. I mean, we all have that kind of story.
Yeah.
You know, we all kind of got into it.
Yeah,
Dave,
absolutely.
Answering Dave's question there, we didn't stock their CD at Home of the Hits. They wanted us to, but we didn't. I did think we sold tickets for that show they were putting on, but I felt like it was definitely one of those moments where I was like, I don't really want to be doing this, but you know, we just felt like I don't know. We felt caught in the middle. You know what I mean? Like, did we do this? Did we not do this?
To answer like the question of where they played, I think they started playing like the metal shows, like Mobile and Creation and stuff. Because they, after the Accused show in '89, they did not play any hardcore shows. But they had to play somewhere, so I can only assume it was the Sky Room.
Yeah. The rockabilly guys, yeah, that's a. We had one guy at Home of the Hits, this older rockabilly dude, who would come in, and he had this like '50s, I don't know, or early '60s like Grand Fury. It was primer. The color it never was painted. It was all just primer. He would buy Goldmine magazine, but he would like drop the N word here and there, and it would just be like Chris Lest. I remember Chris Lest, and I hated him so much. And we were just like. Just buy your stupid fucking magazine and get out of here. You know, and, but then I like the Dictator's little quote at the end there, Dave. I had a stupid memory, Chris. The girl you were talking about earlier, her name was Holly. Was she from Utica?
I didn't get deep enough into her backstory. I just knew that she was I always called her, it was terrible of me, but I always called her Nazi Mike's pet rat.
She may have been Dan Tomaselli's sister. Dan Tomaselli?
No. Different Holly.
Nope.
Different Holly.
Right.
I think, if my memory is like, all of a sudden I started having this memory when we were just recently talking about it. I think her older sister and I were friends at Fredonia, and that she was from Utica, because I kind of remember this girl's sister starting at Buff State and being punk and being was she attractive? You know, like I don't know.
Sure. I mean, I guess so. I mean, a long time ago.
Because I remember her older sister was very attractive. I remember her from that. But But the thing is, I just remember. I remember like kind of watching her like get into the Buffalo scene, and then thinking she went toward that skinhead element, you know, and it might have been her.
Yeah, maybe. Do you remember Alex Lee?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
My sister
old school.
Yeah, my sister was really good friends with him back before he like went that way.
Yeah.
And she stole his leather jacket and gave it to Brian Setzer because apparently Brian Setzer's jacket got stolen the night before wherever it was the Stray Cats played that time.
I was at that Stray Cat show.
Yeah.
That was great.
Yeah, so the jacket he walked out with was Alex Lee's jacket.
I didn't. Yeah. So Brian Setzer go, why is there a giant swastika on the back?
Apparently he went that way.
Feelings about people.
Yeah. But it was apparently before he went that way.
Wait,
people get
Kelly.
It's for Chris or anyone that lives in New York. Can I ask a question that's serious? If you can't answer, don't answer it.
Yeah.
Well, what is this whole DMS crew thing? No.
Sorry, missed the question.
Back on the show.
I don't know.
It's a local friendship club that's been around for a while.
A bunch of guys like palling around.
Yeah, I mean it's a social club for
ice cream socials quarterly.
They're all very sweet, but I didn't know like what the group was about. I'm like, these guys are nice, and they're just doing their thing and whatever.
Yeah, they're great. They're great guys. I have a number of friends who are DMS. They're great guys.
Because there's a lot of great bands that are involved with them, so I don't really know anything.
Yeah. Speaking of which, there's going to be a show here at Tompkins
I'm like,
Square
I
Park,
need a
Madball.
girl crew of some sort.
Scott, it's
Right.
so weird. You're like you look like you're frozen. It's like
I had some phone issues there for a second. I was glitching.
No, yeah.
Uh,
I can't tell if you're moving or not.
yeah, no, here I am, Stevie Wonder, here I am.
All right, cool.
Did you ever want to have fun? Google Stevie Wonder not blind. You'll find
It's ridiculous. It's so amazing.
the most amazing things.
Oh, man.
It's like
I'm
what, like footage of
hugely-
him like a cane, like something's falling, and he goes and he reaches out and grabs it. It's like, how did he do that?
It's very funny. It's so we all do the Brady Bunch thing here. It's just weird to see all of you. Like one of you seems to sit perfectly still. I'm wondering if your screen's like frozen. But then you blink, and I'm like, oh shit!
Greg hasn't blinked in 3.5 hours.
Blinking is for suckers.
Is this all publicly accessible, or are we burning parts of this?
What's that?
Is this all going to be like openly available, or
I
in
don't
the
know if it's
future,
gonna
or
be
is it just
recorded
all
to
in the
YouTube,
real time?
but anybody with Facebook can watch it if they see one of us.
It doesn't. I don't think it saves. I think he's asking if it saves. If you can watch it again.
Oh dear. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought this was a
I don't think it saves.
conversation.
You could
No,
probably
this is
go
live
read
stream,
War and
live.
Peace as long as this thing's running, but you know.
That's fine.
We're gonna have all the Buffalo Nazis coming after us full strength now.
You know what?
I can't
I'm not
wait.
17 anymore. Let them come.
Fuck
Like
those
I will
guys.
come back special for it. I got
You'll hear-
town
I hope you'll-
and we'll see what's up.
I hope you hear on the Manic Pod about the Nazis that we fucking dealt with. God damn.
Yeah, the Manic Depression episode drops Easter Sunday. Thought that was fitting.
Cool. Is Bobby involved in that?
Bob's involved in that.
Awesome. I haven't seen him since. Yeah, I used because of him working in restaurants and bars and stuff. I would hang out with him every weekend. He would stop by.
You guys have the same schedule. He's at Mother's.
Where is he?
Mother's.
Oh, good. Because I think they're doing pretty good. Alex passed away, right? You were talking about Alex Lee.
Not good.
It was funny. Yes, yeah.
No, not you. Not you. Your screen was just frozen for a second. You're okay.
Yeah. There
You're
were
right, bud.
rumors for years that he died, and it would be like, oh, Alex Lee is dead. And then it'd be like 2 days later, no, he's not. And when he died for real, my sister called me, and she was like, hey, Alex Lee died. And I'm like for real? And she's like, yeah, for real. Like, I'm thinking about going to the funeral just because. And she had to talk to Alex Lee, or hadn't talked to Alex Lee since, like,
But not
they went to high
Alex Lee.
school together, or randomly ran into each other. She doesn't know Nazi Alex Lee. She knew punk rock Alex Lee.
So he
And she-
kind of turned back into punk rock Alex Lee at some point in the 2000s. Because
But
he was coming.
Nazi or not, he is deceased.
He would just be just a sad. I don't want a sad drunk guy. You know what
Is
I
he
mean?
alive?
Yeah, and he's dead.
The last bunch of
dead.
years.
Okay.
Yeah, he's dead. And then he would come up to me at the DJ booth and he'd be like, "Oh, can you play me some Stooges and stuff like that?" We would talk, and I would be like, "Where was this guy?" Because he was like, I had really nice talks with him, and I didn't see that that guy in the '80s that I red flag. Like,
you
I'm
saw
never going near this guy.
Alex Lee with the pit
Walking on elbow.
And like Alex Lee was like, if he was still alive, he'd be 56.
Yeah, he's
so So Alex Lee was like, when we were like 18, Alex Lee he was a grown ass man terrorizing teenagers.
Yeah, exactly.
But then like when you're 23, 24, and you see him, and like that's what we were scared of.
Yeah. He was. It was like a sad fall from grace for him, for sure. Like,
So how many of you guys are parents? This is the shit we're looking down the road at, right? So these are the fucking people who show up at your doorstep. hanging out with your kid. Like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna fuck up a Nazi as soon as
But
he
I
shows
mean,
up.
you kind of know what to look for, you know.
Yeah.
Well, we got a pretty good sense these days.
Yeah.
Just look for the red baseball cap. Quick backhand.
Yeah, it's nice that they just kind of wear that, you know, because you can.
How? Yeah, please be so stupid.
Yeah.
You tell me everything you have.
While they feel empowered to run their fucking mouths, you got to keep those receipts.
Yeah.
Yeah,
100%.
absolutely.
One of
I'm
my-
not enough.
One of my favorite observations was like 2 months before the election, a month before the election, I was at a Bills game, and I'm looking around, and all of a sudden I see one dude wearing a red hat, and I'm just like, what the fuck? You know, like, you know, what the fuck? You know, that takes some balls away. Right? Obviously, like 80% of the people around me probably are like, oh, I want to get one of those. But you know, I'm just like, who the fuck would wear this shit? Yeah, that's never gonna happen.
But of course,
This is my child. I'm gonna do my best to keep him away from questionable people.
I was telling you guys earlier, like, you know, my father was 14 when the Nazis invaded. Before he passed away in the 16 elections, he's like, "Pear, this is what Europe looked like in the 30s. This is fucking crazy."
My parents. Oh, sorry. My parents were in Holland. They were 19 when Germany invaded Holland. They met during the war, but they lived in little bit different parts. But basically, like my dad had to live underground to avoid being taken to a work camp. Because they took any able-bodied human to like work in factories for the war effort. Like the stories they would tell me just the Nazi oppression in the other countries in Europe is just, you know, just mind blowing. I mean, like we all sit around thinking about how terrible this pandemic has been, but I mean, they had to fear for their lives at every turn, you know, and it's just crazy to hear these stories and think, how could this happen, you know? And then now to be like seeing things where people are like, oh yeah, that's just kind of how it was happening, you know, and it's like.
My father started to tell me stories. One day, we were drunk around the Christmas table about 6 or 7 years ago before he died. And he stopped. He's like, that's not worth it. He got something out about somebody getting his skis shut off from behind him. And that was about it. He's like, you know what? I'm not talking about this. You know, it's not, you know, you're seeing it going on right now.
Yeah.
Figure it out. You know.
The only good thing is that like it seems like they're not as intelligent as the people who are doing it in the you know, you look at all like the stupidity involved in a lot of it. It's just like hopefully it derails itself. But
the only thing that saved us for those 4 years is how incredibly fucking stupid Donald Trump was.
Exactly. If he had been like,
thank you. Yeah. Well,
if you had one of his fucking sociopath cronies that was actually like, if Stephen Bannon were president, if you were actually like palatable to humans, and he got put into that position of power.
Yeah.
I mean, like, say what you will about that dude. I think he's the biggest piece of shit in the world, Stephen Bannon. But like, he's also objectively very smart and talented.
Yeah, agreed. You know, he's not stupid. You know, he's cringe. He's like a failure of a human being, but he is. There's a lot of sharp minds, and the only thing they all hitched to a train that had a shitty engine. You know, like that just they couldn't make it up the hill. You know, so I mean, there's local guys here who are part of that whole thing. That guy Caputo, he was a Health and Human Services guy. He's an East Aurora guy.
We're not supposed to be talking about politics.
Oh,
yeah, sorry.
So I used to see Steve Bannon at a show, and I slapped him really hard.
And then you today went right into make change.
Me and Eric are gonna fight each other about how much we hate Nazis
Going
more.
way off the path, EVR.
Sorry.
No,
Yeah, I
sorry.
still when that time I saw Sammy
Gift
playing
for you,
drums, and
Anthony.
I'm an old man of 23. I'm like, this kid's what, 11?
I think at the time he was.
Yeah.
I'm gonna reverse myself a little bit, and if you want to talk about the favorite shows, and if you want to just go back in that topic, real quick.
Yeah.
It was
Yes.
San Francisco, 1999, I think, 98, 99, maybe 2000. Slayer, Sick of It All, and Machine Head on Market Street at the Warfield.
Oh wow.
And my folks were across the bay. They were like retired or trying to retire, and I kept fucking
That
up their
sounds
lives.
amazing.
It was the most fun. So Ben was dating some girl at the time, and he's like our old bassist Ben had some girlfriend at the time who worked at a Fridays somewhere down in down in the harbor, and she had tickets to the show. He's like, "Hey, I know you like Slayer. Would you like these tickets?" I'm like, "Yes, I would." I've got 2 tickets. I'm like, "Who the fuck am I going to bring?" Like, my wife or my girlfriend is in Japan at the moment. I've got nobody to bring. You're coming with me. He's like, "I'm not coming with you." Like, you're coming. So I forced him to go to this show, and we're walking on the sidewalk, and there's like a whole bunch of Mormons waving a Bible, waving Bibles. God is going to come down here and kick your fucking ass! And everyone else like, you Slayer!
That's great. That's great.
It was insane. Like SFTV showed up. They're talking to these Mormons like, guys, there's like 12,000 pissed off Slayer fans here, and there's like 5 of you. Measure your odds. And
That's pretty punk rock of them, I gotta say.
It was pretty hardcore. Bennett, I basically dragged Ben to the show. Didn't like Slayer, didn't like Sick of It All, didn't like any of that. So oh my God, Sick of It All went on, and I turned Bennett. You can ask him to this day. Ben will tell you he is a Sick of It All fan on account of that.
I saw them they played the Scrapyard, right, with Snap Days back in like 90.
Oh, I'm sure they did. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's when I saw them. I only saw them once.
And Slayer always has this introduction. They can adapt to any environment and make their introduction as just terrifying as possible. And at the Warfield, it was just darkness. All of a sudden, everything goes dark. And there's like boom, 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 boom.
Oh, I like the mime
builds up.
interpretation.
And it's absolutely terrible. You're like, what the
I feel like I'm there.
And Ben was sold on Slayer after that too. So.
Anyone who wasn't familiar with Slayer is sold on them now too.
Yeah, I feel like, yeah, totally. I feel like Ben just hated things to hate things, and when he actually heard them, he was like, actually, this is really pretty cool.
Well, aren't we all sort of guilty of that, right?
Not to the degree he is or was, but yeah. All right, so let's take a little sidestep here. What era of Sick of It All is your favorite? With Rich on bass or with Rick on bass?
You asking me?
Everyone.
That's hard.
I never saw him with
Scott,
Rich.
I've gone
what
from
do you got?
Simon.
What do you got, Spriggs?
Go ahead, Scott.
I'll go with Rich on bass being better musically. Satari at the beginning, because to me, Satari and Sick of It All lineup at Scratch the Surface is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Because Blood, Sweat, No Tears still my favorite. Scratch the Surface, my second favorite, very close. But I think it's just the time of like them playing Buffalo all the time. That was actually the first show I ever saw was Sick of It All, Rest in Pieces, and Zero Tolerance at River Rock. That was my first show.
It's a good
May
first
of
show.
'89.
But Scott, what's your fifth favorite record?
I saw that. I was like, who's going to fifth?
Dude, that's genius, and I can't do it.
You see, right now, I feel like I'm a guy who like blew off class for the whole semester and showed up to take the exam, and I have no idea what to say.
Yeah, no, Eric, I'm with you.
There was a one album they were on Relativity, right before they were on Atlantic. There was an album on
I
Relativity.
think so. It went
Just look around
7-inch on Rev,
Yeah.
first record on In Effect. Then
In Effect was Relativity,
dropped,
right?
So the next record was Relativity, and then
Oh.
East West was in there.
East West is Atlantic. That same old thing.
They put up so much stuff, and I've got it. Like I said earlier, I coach youth hockey, and because my kids play hockey, and one of my assistant coaches, he's got a sickle. He's got that dragon tattoo on the back of his neck, and I'm like, holy shit! But you're on it, right? He's like, yeah. I'm like, do they have a fucking bad song? He's like, no, they don't. So that sort of ends the conversation. Like, what's your favorite Sickle song? I don't fucking know. There's no.
So many.
Was he Alleyway Crew?
Sorry?
I
missed
live
that.
around the corner from the stairs that the first Murphy Law record, the back picture was taken on.
That's why.
Nice.
Yeah, I walk past it all the time when I go to the post office. I'm like, yeah, that's hardcore history right there.
I hate to be a party pooper, but I think I have to shut this down.
Oh,
Story Queen's rules.
It does.
Well, you don't like the choices people are making on the Sick of It All records? Well, you guys are all wrong. I'm calling this. It's over.
Favorite Chamberlain record?
I told that Chamberlain. So, were you my Chamberlain story with Scott Vogel?
I heard it. That was pretty great.
Yeah, it was great because I was like, I like this stuff. And then when I went and saw Jason Isbell at UB, and I'm like, look at all these old hardcore kids hanging out here. Mike Leahy, Sprig.
Well, when Split Lip played the first show as Chamberlain with Snapcase at the Showcase Theater, I remember a few of you who were there may remember that the singer busts his lip open on the microphone, and all of us are just like, we can't wait to hear the Split Lip jokes coming.
Hey, I got a question though. Favorite Snapcase era: Chris Gallus or Daryl Taberski?
Come on.
Anyone who knows me knows the answer. Big over small. It's
are we
always the
voting?
answer. No offense to anyone, no dissing to anyone, but big S over small every day of the week.
I just laugh because I was thinking about earlier. We were just thinking about those early Snapcase shows. Like, what was Mike Kamade's nickname? Was it like Little Timmy Smallmeat or something like that? Remember that? Am I right, Sprig? Is that it?
It was something like that. That sounds very familiar.
That's great. And I just remember that poor kid was always like, yeah, they call me. And then Kid Ice.
I like how I'm the only one who answered that question. Way to leave me hanging out there, guys. That's awesome.
I don't actually care for the answers. I just wanted I wanted to see everyone's reaction. Hey, Kelly, when you were talking about John Salemi's cousin, what was a boy, girl? What was her name? What was
her name is
their
Chelsea
name?
Keene.
Okay.
Chelsea Keene,
I went to school with another one of his
cousins.
cousins.
She lived behind me.
Cool. I went to high school with John's cousin, Dennis.
Dennis is awesome.
Dennis is great.
They always had massive family parties, and I have pretty much like no family at all. So we had some, and then I'd go over there, and they had like 50 people at Memorial Day.
That's
and I
cool.
met John. And we were,
you find your tribe.
And
that was the coolest thing. Like just walking the tribe.
Real quick, Derek.
Oh yeah, nice.
Well, I mean,
Cylinder.
Nice. My
you
first
wanna
board.
at that time at you're like
Nice,
12,
pair.
13, you want to know your stuff.
I'll go ahead and reply with a Snapcase answer. I'll go ahead and say Gerald Taberski. As much as I love Gallus and
I know.
he's
I
an
love
amazing
them
frontman,
both.
it's a hard
But,
answer, especially for those of us
it's
here
a
on this
hard
call.
answer.
It's like Dave Smalley or Scott Reynolds. You know,
To answer the question, who did the Misfits cover with Snapcase?
That was
Cheryl.
Daryl singing.
We can go
Yeah,
to
that
Chris
was
is only on the
actually
45, right? Chris is
yeah,
only on the 7-inch, right?
Yeah.
that was amazing. So
I mean, either
That's fine.
answer, you're not wrong. Let me just
No,
be clear.
Oh,
Either
no.
answer, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're
Sometimes
both
people
great.
take what I say as like talking shit. So like that's not the case here. I just
you know,
know,
I'm
we-
sure
we-
80% of what you say is talking
and the
shit.
ball truck.
I've been very good on the podcast.
We were all like sort of a year and a half off beat, right?
I couldn't
I
see
think
that
we were a
band.
year and a half. I'm sorry, Kelly. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm just a
Well, I
big
think I
fan
was.
of Tim
I
Redmond.
interrupted you. I'm sorry.
Tim Redmond wins everything, so I don't care what the singers say.
All I got to say is Cinderblock 2021. Hashtag Cinderblock 2021.
I think around the last, we were about a year and a half off of each other. I think, frankly, if Snapcase and Manic and had been going together at the same time, it may have been a slightly different scene.
Maybe. I do think that it was interesting that and I didn't know this until recently that Robbie from the Goo Goo Dolls recorded the Zero Tolerance 7-inch, the first Snapcase 7-inch, and the Manic Depression CD.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, did you record that at Trackmaster?
We did.
Yeah. He owns that place now.
I've heard that.
GCR Audio.
It would make sense. He had good. He had complete command of that place. He knew exactly what he was doing in there.
Oh, it's a beautiful room. It's still as gorgeous as it was then.
He did a great job.
Did Armin Petrie work on your record, or did you have?
Frankly,
he's the guy who did the first few Goose records, but he would mix stuff that Robbie recorded a lot.
Okay, we actually spent a lot of time mixing it down by ourselves with Robbie in the booth. Jake and Ben in that booth, mixing it down. That was a crazy 20. We spent 20 hours in there. We came out with a product.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, it was good. He does great work.
Robbie really knows what he's doing. So I don't know who else is in there now, but great.
I know. Jay Zabricki did the last Every Time I Die record there, and engineering it.
Okay.
But it's an amazing room. Amazing. I did one of my bands did a 45 there a couple of years ago, and it was really funny because all of a sudden I realized it's I had recorded there in '88, and here I was again recording in 2017 or 18 again, and it was oh my God, I got to do something with my life.
And on that note, we're going to wrap this up. Thank you guys. Thanks everybody for coming on. Thanks for having who watched and interacted in the comments. Thank Tom Bros. Thanks EVR. Thanks Pear. Thanks Spriggs. Thank you Kelly. It's awesome. It was a wonderful 3 hours to spend on a Friday night.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. It was really fun.
This meant a lot to me. Just being involved, hearing the stories and telling the story, it's just a great thing.
You got to keep some in your back pocket for when you come back.
Yeah.
I got a lot.
Yeah.
Guys, if you find me on the Facebook or my face or whatever, if you find me, look me up and connect.
Yeah, hit me up too. Hit me up too. I want to make sure because I don't think we're friends.
All right, yeah, we'll do the same. You and I, Jay Hart and I, right?
Oh yeah.
So, all right, so we got that going. All right, very cool. All right, guys, be well.
Take care.
Thanks.
Good night.
Happy Easter.
Happy Easter.